What is going on, everybody? Welcome another episode of Heavy Metallurgy number 272. We're just cruising right along here, aren't we, Alan?
We are absolutely cruising.
How are you doing, sir?
I am cruising. It's summer. It's hot. It's thunderstormy. It's humid. It's summer. But we're doing all right. How about yourself?
Doing all right. One of those kind of a drag-ass week. But, hey, this will be fun. It's great. We have Eric Bauer back on the show. Woohoo! High Defamation TV. Good to see you, Eric. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Now that I've had a chance to rant backstage for about 15 minutes.
Right.
And I have
destock
Oreos,
your
so
lamps.
that's also pretty sweet.
Yes.
Oreos, they solve a lot of problems.
They do. Double stuff in particular.
Unfortunately,
and milk.
no, double stuffed are nasty, Marty. God.
It's no different than the regular Oreos. They're just a little fatter.
That's gross. That's the worst part of the cookie.
What? It's the 1-2 punch.
As it is.
So how you doing, Eric? What's been going on? Obviously, a lot's been going on. You've just moved recently.
Yeah, so I moved back in April of this year from not just like a short distance, like not a huge distance. Like I'm still in Seattle, but I went from like central, kind of the university area of Seattle to like the north end. And like I'm literally a block outside of city limits. So yeah, just moved. It's been not the best of the last few months, just for personal reasons, but we don't need to get into that tonight.
Right on.
So just kind of trying to just live, you know.
I hear you.
But keep the channel going, whatnot, all that stuff.
No, and then High Defamation TV, everybody. If you're not familiar, please go check it out. Link in the description. One of my favorite channels. I love Eric's picks. Are always diverse and a lot of shit I've never heard of or seen. He's got just the perfect way of describing them. And also, on occasion, he spins some records. He hasn't done that since the move, but it's fun.
No, I did once.
Oh, you did?
I did one.
I must have missed it.
Yeah, I did one. I think I did one. No, you were there.
Was I?
Pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's all a blur. It's all a big mushy blur.
Who knows?
Jay says your
even
shirt's
know
a big
most of
mushy
the time.
blur. Marty, what shirt you got on? He wants to know.
Winder. Arntor.
There you go, Jay.
So, yeah, it's good to have Eric back on. It's been a hot minute. It seems like the last one was... No, it wasn't the grindcore one. There was one after that.
Nowadays, black metal.
Ah, yeah. Nowadays,
Like
black
2
metal.
years ago? Something like that?
No,
That
it
was
wasn't
me
a few
and
years
Simon.
ago.
No, it was like 2 years ago, man. Pretty sure.
Right on.
I mean, I am pretty old these days, so my brain might not be playing correctly with actual like, events. So who knows?
Well, it's good to have you back. And Eric had a good handful of topic ideas, and we decided on apocalyptic albums, bands, however we want to slice it, and let Eric get into his process for picking stuff for this. But I'll say I struggled for this one for some reason. You were talking a little bit about it backstage, how you were going to get into this. How did you go about this one?
Well, okay, so the idea just struck me because like I was at the gym, which is probably where I'm at most of the time these days, between work and just my personal shit. I was listening to Artillery from Heaven by Contention, which is just like a metallic hardcore band out of Tampa, Florida. But it's like really heavily leaning in the death metal area. Like it's just like think like Slayer Integrity meets like the hardcore era of Obituary, but it's heavy as balls is what the point is. There's a particular track on there that whenever it comes on, like literally my neck hairs, my arm hairs stand up, and I think every time I hear it, I think, God damn, this is like the sound of the end of the world. And so that was kind of like what sparked the thought. And then I started thinking about just like end of the world music. Initially, the thought was like, okay, well, why don't we approach this from like a visual perspective in terms of like cover artwork, but then realizing that, not every cover art that depicts the end of the world has musically is going to like portray that as well. So I just kind of started broadening it, and now it's just like all picked on vibes for the most part. Vibes and some band names.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How about you, Alan? How'd you approach this one?
Yeah, well, I was really glad Eric brought this one up. It's a topic we've thought of a few times in the past, but we've always ended up deciding on covering something else. So a lot of times it makes like the top 3, but it then always gets cut. So it was cool to see it finally float to the top. I approached it kind of a couple of different ways. Like Eric was saying, there's more than one way to go at it. So there are some bands that just have a really crazy over-the-top sound that you just feel like, yeah, this is a soundtrack for Armageddon or something. There are some bands that have kind of a visual aspect that really plays into the whole post-apocalyptic thing, whether that's, a nuclear winter scenario or some other kind of, dystopian future. And I got a few random ones that are also just kind of for fun, but they have a connection to the theme. So, yeah, I think this one is something that you could interpret several ways, and my picks are a little diverse to kind of reflect all of that. There was a core of stuff that immediately came to mind. So there's like, when I started my list, there were like maybe 10 or 12 things. There's just like that. But then it did get stuck a little bit. So I kind of started to broaden the search parameters and felt like, okay, this counts in a way. It's a different way than the first 12 I picked. But I think we got some pretty fun stuff to tie into the whole post-apocalyptic thing. And just to be clear, my wife tried to convince me to lead off with an Apocalyptica album, the cello band that plays Metallica covers all the time. I decided, I'm not going to stoop that low. So I'll spare us all that one. But Marty, what about you? You said you found it a little tough at first. So what did you end up doing to approach the topic?
Well, before that, everybody's complaining about the ads that are now in the live streams. YouTube has made some changes, and if you're monetized, initially when it started off, you could adjust how you can't just turn off the ads anymore. They're gonna run them. There was you could have more frequent or less frequent, and now it's like either on or off. So I don't know. It's frustrating. I'm sorry, everybody, but in order to keep the lights on and things like that, it's got to be monetized. I am sorry about the ads. Ultimately, I don't want to tell anybody how to spend their money, but that YouTube premium shit, worth every penny. Since I've paid for that, I don't have any ads anymore. I know that's what they want you to do, and it sucks. But or get an ad blocker. But yeah, for me, sorry everybody about the ads. It's frustrating, but what are you going to do? And for me, I guess I was having a hard time processing. Eventually, where I landed was the fact that albums that had an oppressive, kind of end of the world, things decaying. Sometimes I thought about it, after a devastation, the rebuilding process. Other times I thought of the act of things being destroyed. So you'll see throughout my stack, there's kind of a theme. But yeah, I think I eventually got there, but initially I was like, oh my God, I just couldn't, but it took 1 or 2 picks. I'm like, oh, okay. Now I'm getting in the flow of how this has to go, but we got there and we have some shit I haven't really ever shown on the channel. So that's cool. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so good pick on this one, Eric, for sure. And, we're going to start with Eric.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and definitely rest in peace to Lou from Sick of It All. What a drag.
Yeah, huge
Sucks,
drag.
man. Yep.
I saw Sick of It All play live for the Scratch the Surface tour, and the openers for that show were Orange 9mm, which wasn't so weird, but the opener was the fucking first tour that Korn ever took nationally, and that
really?
threw everybody off.
Huh.
Yeah, super weird.
Wow.
We were like, this isn't that bad, and then the Knick Knack Patty Wagon, we're like, this is pretty fucking bad.
What is happening? Yeah.
So, I started just like randomly, when I got hit with the news of what we were doing, randomly pulling shit that I thought, just off the top of my head, might be applicable, and a lot of it got put away because I'm like, nah, that doesn't work. But one that I pulled out initially and kept out, there's a few of those. And probably, I don't know, the most obvious one for me, I think out of my stack, maybe, I don't know, maybe not. And I also tried to go with shit that I haven't shown on my channel before. That was, because I don't know what the fuck I've shown on my channel. So the first thing that I pulled out, and shit's falling out of it, so you have to excuse me, was Stillbirth Machine, Order from Chaos. I mean,
God, I haven't spun that in 1,000 years. Good album.
Insanely cacophonous, just feral record right here. Probably my favorite Order from Chaos record. I have a few of them. It was between this or An Ending in Fire. And An Ending in Fire, I was just like, it's 4 really long songs and they all sound exactly the same. So this one is more just, you can differentiate track from track. And while they all carry kind of like the same theme, this album is just crushing and like absolutely a good soundtrack to, I don't know, like A Planet on Fire is kind of how I picture listening to this. Yeah, just absolutely infernal and apocalyptic.
Agreed. Yeah. Good start. Good pick. Alan.
Yeah, very cool start. All right. Yeah, I'll start with one that was pretty obvious to me. This band approached it not just with song lyrics, but they really kind of went all out with their stage appearance as well. And that band is, of course, Carnivore, out of Brooklyn with Pete Steele, pre-Typo Negative, of course. They, kind of went for the whole Mad Max warrior look. There's some funny anecdotes in the Peter Steele biography by Jeff Wagner about, again, it looks all elaborate and stuff, but back in these days, they were just splicing stuff together out of whatever they could find. There's a funny story from one of Peter's sisters that she had some kind of like old, like mink stole kind of thing, but it was like kind of old and ratty or something, and she just gave it to him, and they basically just butchered it with scissors. So a lot of the fur that you see them wearing in some of these old promo shoots was part of his sister's like antique worn out fur stole or something, and just splicing it together with glue and hardware and nail guns and such. Yeah, and of course they kind of did lots of songs that leaned into this, some of which get a little controversial. They were not above courting that and sort of being a bit of a protagonist on both the albums. I just pulled the first one because it had a really good image that tied into it. But yeah, this was very much their MO. They wanted to have a strong, not just presence and stage presence, but a strong visual aesthetic to back it up. And obviously it worked pretty good to a point. Peter obviously went on to bigger and better things with Typo, which also had a strong visual presence, just a very different one, went in a different direction at that point. But yeah, I think Carnivore works well for that. And the music, fits that bill too. It's got, a very loud, thrown together. It's thrashy, but it draws, from punk and other styles a bit as well. So yeah, it's got a bit of, a cacophony to it that you also associate with just the whole kind of Mad Max take on the post-apocalyptic thing. Everything's just clashing with one another. Sounds like it's all going to blow up or fall apart, and you just go with it and fight to the last. So yeah, Carnivore seems like an easy first pick that I'll start with. Marty, what you going to lead off with?
Well, my first pick was The Mystical Beast of Rebellion by Blut aus Nord.
Oh, okay.
And also the work that transforms God can also be thrown in this conversation. But this album in particular, this album just sounds like the ending of Days as it's happening. The way the riffs are played by the slight bending of the strings while he's playing the notes. It's just a sick, dark, twisted. It like pulls these visions out of my head of like these biomech planes dropping corpses stuffed with bombs on a desolate city. It's just it sounds gross. It sounds dark and twisted. And again, it just sounds like the world is diseased and ravaged by war. And it's just when he started getting more psychedelic and weird, I kind of lost it. I really liked this this realm that he was in here, but I don't know how sustainable it was. I think he really did need to evolve, or, this stuff here would have been got very commonplace. And there's a lot of other bands that kind of picked up on this as well. But this early, or I guess this is kind of a transitional Blue Dust Nord out of their traditional black metal stylings into something far darker and more twisted. But yeah, end of the world stuff. The Mystical Beast of Rebellion is absolutely crushing and very dark, drum machine driven, and you're going to see a lot of drum machine stuff in my stack here. There's something cold and calculating about that when it comes to end of the world stuff for some reason with where my head was at picking for these tonight.
That's a great visual, but I do have to ask, why do the bombs have to be stuffed into a corpse?
That's just how I see it. Just how I see it. It's more of a psychological impact. I guess
you see people falling from the sky and they explode, and
yeah,
you're traumatized for the half a second before you're blown.
You're dead. Yeah.
Sounds like an insult being added to injury here. I got you.
Yeah, the whole bendy
visual.
The bendy string stuff is just so off-putting. I love it. So good. All right, Eric, what you got?
Okay. I'm not going in any real order here. Just kind of like pulling what strikes my mood most. So the next one I pulled, Exploding Corpse Action, which it's probably one of the best band names ever. What are you listening to? Oh, just Exploding Corpse Action.
We got corpses exploding all over the annihilation.
Yeah. This is a discography LP. Exploding Corpse Action were around from 95 to 97. And I don't know, probably the easiest and laziest way to describe this band is like, imagine if Repulsion, instead of singing about horror, pain, and gore, sang about cosmic chaos and the universe ending. And you would have Exploding Corpse Action. There's plenty of gore and horror on this album, but this is mostly just like sci-fi themed chaos and cataclysm in an album. If you like Repulsion sped up, you will dig this album. Absolutely. This shit is so good. It's heavy, it's brutal, and it sounds older than it is, 95, 97. It's got that classic Repulsion. I guess you could probably, I've said Repulsion so many times, but Terrorizer would be another good go-to, or like Nausea out of LA, not the New York Nausea. Excruciating Terror, that kind of vibe. But just amped up to like, they were probably on meth. That'd be my guess.
Yep. Very apocalyptic.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. I don't know that one.
Exploding Corpse Action, Alan. How could you forget that band? I mean,
that totally blows my mind. I don't know it.
Yeah, well, at least you're not exploding.
Not yet. Let's see. I'll piggyback off of Marty's pick, because I also picked something from Blue Dust Nord, but from the other end of their catalog, more or less. I went with Disharmonium 2, Nahab. This is where they started going back towards the more dissonant stuff. Yeah, they had the more melodic albums at times and the more psychedelic ones around Hallucinogen. But the Disharmonium series leans back into a lot more of the dissonant sound. Part one of this, and so far there's been two of these. I know he often does things in sets of three. We'll see if there's going to be a Disharmonium 3. But the part one I really liked, because it did sound very strange, very alien. It had, that kind of cosmic chaos sound to it that Eric mentioned before. But it still was, everything was still kind of song shaped. I feel like on part two, he really ditched anything that leaned the slightest bit melodic and just made it into this big alien sounding wall of noise. Not an easy album for me to get into. This was one I listened to it once. It's like, I'm just going to put that over there and walk away slowly, and we'll come back to that some other time, because that's a bit of a monster sound. So yeah, a tougher one to listen to, but it definitely captures the vibe here. It just sounds utterly bizarre and alien. So Blue Toss Nord has been interesting how he'll go back and forth between focusing on more dissonant sounds, focusing on more melodic material, such as like, the early stuff with Fathers of an Icy Age and Dialogue with the Stars. And then he can also do this stuff, which, it's just almost feels like music human ears aren't meant to fully process somehow. So good pick, Marty. I thought I'd just go ahead and play off this because there's multiple parts of his catalog where you can hear him go and really lean in that direction. So Blue Toss Nord's Disharmonium 2 Nahab. Definitely sounds like something that's meant to be played at the end of the world. Maybe 10 or 15 minutes after the end of the world has already happened.
Yeah. Right on. And I did want to circle back to your carnivore pick. I just thought about it. I was going to say something, but I already kind of moved on. But
Sure.
Starting with carnivore first and then hearing Type O, I just remember being so utterly disappointed with Type O negative. I don't know. I did miss the first Type O, but then, the MTV Type O, I was just like, I don't know, this sucks. But, eventually I came around to it. I like it, but I love that, especially Retaliation. That was just a really good crossover record. Unique, heavy.
That's interesting. So you didn't hear Type O until, I guess, Bloody Kisses?
Yeah, it was whatever was on MTV at the time.
Yeah. Okay. It'd be interesting to know what your reaction would have been if you had heard Slow, Deep, and Hard, because that one feels like it's at least closer to the carnivore. It's a much dirtier, angrier sounding record than Bloody Kisses.
Yep.
Yeah, I can see if you went from Retaliation to Bloody Kisses, it'd just be like, what the hell is this?
What happened? Yeah, what happened?
Yeah, and I kind of had the same reaction, except I had no background with carnivore. The first time I ever heard Peter Steele sing was the Black Number 1 video, and it didn't make a really good impression. Let's just leave it at that. I did not run out and buy black lipstick or anything like that anytime soon.
All right. Next pick, again, drum machine driven, kind of chaotic. We got an Al Nathrak with the Codex Necro.
Oh, okay. Good pick.
I have not spun this in a while, and I threw this on yesterday as I was starting to get the list together to see if it clicked the way I thought it did. And I really like the early stuff by this band. There's a bit of an industrial charge to it because it is, drum machine, but there's also some synth work intermixed with it. But the early stuff is just really kind of raw-ish black metal. These guys are from England. Mm-hmm. And the way they craft songs, especially on this, it just feels very intense, very dire, like the world is ending type stuff. Just it feels like it's coming at you from all sides, and at the heart of it is black metal, but you can tell that they listen to other things than black metal. And the fact that they don't hide the fact that they're machine driven, I think that's pretty cool. If you're going to do a drum machine, my first bands were drum machine, but we tried to hide the fact. We tried to make it sound like real drums, but getting more into electronic music and hearing guys work with it, the medium, and actually try to embellish their metal with actual electronic ideas. I think that's cool. I think it's cool. And these guys did it really well, and they did it even more so as they moved forward. But chaos was always kind of at the heart of their band. But great record. It was cool to check this out again. It has been a minute since I've spun it, and good stuff. Codex Necro by Anal Nathrak.
Interesting. I hear that band's name pop up all the time, but I've never checked them out.
Would have been one I would have figured Eric would have liked at some point in time.
Anal Nathrak?
Yeah.
I liked Mistress more than I liked Anal Nathrak, the side project, like the Doomy side project.
I have not heard that. Okay. Right on.
It's pretty dope. From what I remember, it's been a long time since that's funny that came up because that was out. So I picked a CD. Actually, I got a couple here, which is rare, but this is my next pick. Lair of the Minotaur.
Mm.
ultimate destroyer. I think this is the second layer of the Minotaur. This album was like, when it came out, it was super weird for me because the first layer of the Minotaur and their first EP was just like pure like Venom and enemy worship. Like a little bit of Abigail thrown in there for good measure, but like, you know, at the time, it's probably 2004, 2005, give or take, when those came out. This was, I want to say, like 2007. Kind of forgoes that Venom worship. Like, it's still there, but like they downtune everything like to a ridiculous level. Like this record is earth crushingly heavy, but it's also metal as fuck. I mean, the first track, Juggernaut of Metal, which is just basically lays the blueprint. And like, if anything was music to like bomb cities to, it's this album right here. Like, every track is just almost a caricature of something else, and they just try to get heavier and heavier and heavier as they go. And it's not a doom record, and it's not a black metal record, and it's not a death metal record. It's definitely, it's if it shares anything in common with anything, it'd be like it's a thrash record, but like down tuned to like sludge tuning, basically. With blackened shrieks and vocals. Like, if you like the band Mantar from Germany, I feel like they probably copped a lot from the early Lair of the Minotaur stuff in their early records, at least. Tracks like Enchanted, or what, Engorged with Unborn Gore. The last track, The Hydra Gods. The Hydra coils upon this wicked mountain, is just like a world-ending track right there. That's like the world serpent devouring the planet at the end of the album. It's awesome.
All right, Alan.
All right. Another one that was very obvious, popped to mind right away, was this one, Voivod's War and Pain. Yeah, again, I'm late to Voivod, and I'm really just comfortable with the first handful of albums. We'll work on some of the later ones sooner or later. We'll get there. But yeah, this album definitely just kind of screams that whole post-apocalyptic thing. You've got a very unhinged sound, but it's not amateurish. It's not because they don't know how to play or how to write yet. They're kind of doing it intentionally. You get the sense as you pay more attention. It's not like Piggy's learning to play. It's like, no, he knows exactly how to play. He's just going for this really kind of loose and lethal style. And just everything about the album kind of plays into it. You've got, the font just, looks like something, scrawled out of, traces of blood. The color scheme, just plays into this whole, rusty, metallic. It looks like just some giant chunk of a war machine that's, been bombed out, burned out, and left on the battlefield. And at least on this pressing, everything on the back, it's kind of hard to read. It's a bit obscured. You've got the early Korgel looking just like, some kind of, post-apocalyptic survivor, soldier of hell. The band's music fits the category perfectly at this point. And you could probably make a case for Roar fitting on this list pretty well also. I felt like this one, it's just the one I felt like pulling. I've talked about Roar, I feel like, more often than this one. I know compared to what they did later, the first couple of Voivod albums are like, there's the early days, the quote unquote simple stuff. But for me, this was the way I finally got into Voivod, was starting in the shallow end of the pool and working my way towards the more advanced material. I had tried in the past just jumping into things like Dimension Hatros and have never quite clicked the way it did with so many folks. This, I think, serves as a good gateway album for people that are more used to a heavy metal background and interested in sort of following the development of the band through the more advanced sci-fi type stuff. But if this doesn't scream post-apocalyptic hellscape battlefield, then I'm on the wrong stream and I don't know what I'm doing. So Voivod War and Pain seems a real obvious inclusion.
Alan, did you know that there's a Voivod PC game coming out?
I've heard of talk of it.
It looks
didn't know
cool.
how far along it was.
It looks
I've
cool.
heard folks mention
It's
it.
coming out this year, I think next quarter maybe, but it's like a Metroidvania type game.
Oh, okay,
You
cool.
play as Korgel.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have to, absolutely. If you didn't, they were building it wrong.
It looks amazing. I'm just gonna say it looks fucking
Hmm.
amazing.
That's good to hear. I mean, I'm guessing the band's involved, and I'm sure
Yeah,
they'd have a pretty high quality control on anything, especially
for sure.
that band's so visual, and has such a good artistic flair. I don't think they'd want anything out there that didn't look exactly the way you want it.
I'm tempted to stream playing it on my channel when it comes out, but we'll see.
That could be pretty cool, actually. Good way to check it out.
Is it going to be on all formats, or is it just one system it's going to be on?
Well, at this point I'm mostly just PC, but I would guess it's going to come out on console too, because most of those Metroidvanias do. So
Good. Okay.
Good.
All right. Well, yep. We'll jump into
Okay.
Alan's homework here too, but Roar for me, this was another early pick, and then Alan used it for the thumbnail. I'm like, oh yeah, that's an obvious one for sure. But yeah, this of the early Voivod albums, this one is the most intense. It feels like the most just burning thrash record. It just completely unhinged. Little hard initially for me to get into this. It took me a while. Where War and Pain it was more song oriented. This one here, you have to really dig in and it takes a minute to process the songs, because it's mostly aggression and, lyrics like "I'm still smashing and my body's doing bad," stuff like that. It's just, this tank rolling through the wasteland, firing off its missiles, I think is just a good apocalyptic vision for sure. And, Away's artwork is amazingly classic and such an identity for the band to wrap their whole concept around. But and the band pictures, the music sounds like the band pictures look. Just intense, teeth gritting, unrelenting, and the fact that they Jean Pierre is where they came from. A unique spot in Canada, and they had a sound like nobody else. So the intensity is one thing, but those weird chords and phrases that Piggy used to write his riffs, it was a very bizarre record, and it took a lot for me to unpack it. But once I finally did, it's, wow. You got to stand in awe at the brutality of it. Great record. Roar. And
All right.
Eric's back.
I'm wearing the shirt of this band's countryman, Axe Grinder, but this is Prophecy of Doom.
Oh, dude, good pick. That's a great record.
Fucking Acknowledge the Confusion Master. I mean, let's look at the album cover. I mean, who knows what's going on there? It's just a bunch of people walking into a fire that's starting in like some massive tree god sort of scene. That's the vibe of the whole record. This is one of those records. It was put out by Peaceville and Def Records in Peaceville in like 91, I think. So it was early, 1990. It's like, is it a crust record or is it a death metal record? It's pretty much both.
It's a
I
cross.
think it's one of the albums that kind of set the blueprint for fucking modern stenchcore, which is one of the best musical genres of all time. But like Hell Crusher, Misery, Cancer Spreading, Fathom, all that kind of shit, Instinct of Survival, all that kind of stuff owes its roots to this band and Axe Grinder, in my opinion. Amoebics too, but Amoebics was still a little bit more on the punkier, venomier side. These guys just full on embraced that like mechanized death metal assault that both were doing, I think, at this point. And kind of that second record of Sacrilege, but more fucked up and more occult driven, and more just focused on worst case scenarios of the end of times. And this shit rules. Yeah, Deviated Instinct's another fucking rad example. Guttural Breath, probably their best record, and the one that I would kind of put on par with this album right here. Awesome.
I loved how twisted the vocals were slightly pitch shifted, maybe.
Dude,
I don't know.
They're definitely pitch shifted. I see. One of the things I did, I pulled all this stuff that I pulled, I listened to. So I didn't just like randomly pull stuff and like trying to remember what it sounded like. I listened to all this shit over the last week and a half, and the vocals are for sure pitch shifted. Like,
yeah.
I haven't heard vocals this twisted. Like that first pitch shifter EP, Death Industrial, his vocals are pretty fucked up on that, and they're very reminiscent of this Prophecy of Doom.
Yeah. That's a great album. Great band. All right. Ellen.
All right. Did somebody say bolt thrower? For this, you could pick a lot of bolt throwers, but I think especially the early ones fit the whole post-apocalyptic thing. Later ones are very war-themed still, but it feels like it's a little more grounded, a little more human. But the first couple of albums, it's got this extra, really post-apocalyptic part. And the Games Workshop collaboration on Realms of Chaos plays into that really well, too. The tagline for Warhammer 40,000 is, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. Period. The whole premise being there is sort of a apocalyptic event in human history, and even 10,000 years or more after it's over, things are bad. Humanity survives, but the whole kind of premise is humanity probably won't survive. It's being assaulted from without by alien forces, but it's also rotting from the inside.
I was going to say, at what cost?
Exactly. Yeah, humanity. I mean, they have this massive empire, but the whole premise is it's teetering on the brink. Any one event may be, humanity's last gasp. And so it's not a heroic thing. This isn't like, yay, send in the troops and save the day. It's, we will clog the rivers with our dead, and if we die, we will take as many of them with us as we can. We are going to lose eventually. We cannot win all these battles and fight all these wars on all these different fronts, but God damn it, we will make them pay before they exterminate humanity from the universe. That's pretty fucking apocalyptic. The lore for Warhammer is decades deep at this point, so it's a little intimidating to get into, but it is pretty nicely done. Games Workshop has a particular approach that makes it work over such long time spans. It takes some getting used to because it's not very linear and it's not always very satisfying in terms of giving you like hard, concrete facts or events. You have to have a certain amount of fluidity involved where things that you think aren't always right, but it may be years before that plays out. But anyway, just having this grim, you're fighting this crazy epic battle, knowing that you're probably just going to, even if you win, you're going to lose. Even if you somehow survive the day, it's going to be a Pyrrhic victory. And maybe you just grind it out for 1 or 2 more days, and then it's your time. Yeah, it plays into that apocalyptic idea perfectly. The art for it plays in nicely. It was Bolt Thrower was the perfect soundtrack for Warhammer. And I've mentioned it before when we've talked about Bolt Hammer, but it was also a nice gateway for a lot of gamer nerds to get into more extreme metal. There were a lot of folks, I knew when I was younger who they were not heavy metal fans, at all, but they knew Bolt Thrower inside and out because of the Games Workshop connection, and they loved it. And it kind of led them to look at, some other bands here and there as inspiration for, okay, we're going to run a different kind of role-playing game campaign, and I want music that would be a good soundtrack for that to play in the background while we're fighting dragons or dealing with parallel universes or whatever the game entailed. Having Bolt Thrower as a soundtrack to Warhammer inspired a lot of folks to look at other types of extreme music for soundtracks to their other role-playing experiences. So yeah, after the first... Actually, really probably just the first 2 Bolt Throwers I think fit this best. Warmaster still has the Games Workshop connection, but the music is cleaned up a lot at that point moving forward. But these first 2, Bolt Thrower sounds like those covers look. It just giant alien war machine crushing everything it can until something blows it to smithereens. What more could you want?
Right on.
Hey, if Realms of Chaos is the 40K correlation, then in Battle There Is No Law is the just Warhammer correlation right there.
All right.
That would work.
Crushing.
That would work.
Well, this next one is by a project called Skin Chamber Wound. This is Chris Moriarty and Paul Lemos from the band Controlled Bleeding. It's very odd to hear actual electronic and noise musicians saying, okay, we're going to make a metal album now, or take a stab at making a metal album. It's usually metal dudes saying, oh, we're going to take on industrial ideas. This is just an odd, very disjointed, and ugly take on... What's that?
That band photo says it all. And
Isn't it great? Yeah.
You need to know about what it sounds like. Like, it's just those two fucking filth hounds right there, dude.
Yep, you know you had to have a tetanus shot before this photo session for sure, and yeah, I mean there's an apocalyptic sense to this, and the fact that the riff writing it makes me wonder if they wrote the riffs on a keyboard, because the riffs are just obtuse and bizarre, and it does not sound like it comes from a metal mindset. You can tell they're electronic guys with their interpretation of it. The album that followed this one, Trial, is a little bit more comfortable in the medium, I think, but still really fucked up and weird. But this here is just a, I mean, Eric might disagree with me, but I struggled a long time trying to absorb this. I finally got it, and it's one of those albums I have to be in the mood for, because it is pretty noisy and just kind of just pummeling. It feels like a machine lurching through, a mountain of rust. It's anguished. What's that?
Sorry, I was just saying, when that came across my radar, I was listening to shit like Ve Solus and Colossus by Scorn, and like the fucking Cattle Press out of New York, which was like a really doomy crust band that I think dude from the dude that everybody canceled from Incantation,
Pillard. Craig Pillard. Yep.
He was involved in that, in Cattle Press. It's like really fucked up, like fucked up music. So that Skin Chamber, when I first heard it, I was like, yeah, this is my shit right here.
Yeah, it's really funny that this came out on RC Records. I mean, it just doesn't make sense that this would have been picked up like that. But I mean, I think I have not heard all the Controlled Bleeding stuff. I know that there is a lot of noise albums, and I really struggle with the noise stuff. But there are, songs from The Grinding Wall and Trudge, and there's others in the industrial where they're focused on industrial music. I really like that. It's really strange from what else was going on in industrial at the time, but hearing their take on what metal is very interesting, and it hurts a little bit. So check it out if you're into something a little bit more adventurous and very despondent and churning. Very cool, different, unique. All right.
Like, as much as I love that fucking Meat Hook Seed record, Embedded, like compared to Wound, it's like a kid's album.
Right on. Yes, exactly. Hey, Alan, would you run the ship for a minute? I need to step out for a sec.
Yeah.
I'll be back. If I'm not back, just keep going past me. I'll be back eventually. Catch up.
Okay. I'm big, so I guess it's my turn.
It is.
This is a tape. I don't know how well you're all going to see it, but I'm going to show it anyway. If I can figure out where my camera lens is at. This is the first Deutsch Nepal full-length album released on Cold Meat Industries. This is licensed by Cold Meat. Sound Source, a subsidiary of Cold Meat Industries. Original tape. Deutsch Nepal was, they got their start as like one of those like early Marshall industrial bands that Cold Meat was super well known for having signed, like Raisin Dietre and like that kind of shit. This album is just nihilistic industrial hopelessness. It's not very Marshall. It's a lot more atmospheric. There's a lot of ambience here, but it's harsh without being harsh noise. It's brutal without being so cacophonous that it just sounds like a wall of amps blasting, tonal feedback that changes every like 5 minutes. It's not like a Sun record. It's definitely its own thing. It's, in my opinion, in terms of like all the electronic albums that I've heard in my life, it's probably one of the most, I would call it malignant and also just hateful industrial records that I've heard in a long time. When this came across my radar, and like when I found this project, I was listening to like old Mortice, right? So like that's kind of what I was expecting, because it's like, oh, Cold Meat, they put out Mortice, it'll sound like that, and it sounds like nothing like Mortice was. It makes Mortice seem like, you know, like storytime music. It is, this is, I mean, this is just like, if you can picture a hell on earth, this album, I mean, it's called Deflagration of Hell. So, I mean, there you go. It's just, imagine earth on fire in totality, but living through it without skin or, you know, hope. And that's what you have with this record.
Oh, makes sense. Yeah, now, I'm not familiar with the Cold Meat stuff. I've always kind of had the impression that a lot of their artists might qualify for this kind of sound, other than Mortice, of course.
Right.
Is that accurate, or do I have?
I mean, it's fairly accurate. A lot of these bands though did like weird like 180s when like the 2000s hit. So like another example, like a band that an early Deutsche Nepal release is a split record they did with fucking Jesus Christ, why can't I think of their name? It's a German band. Doesn't matter. I love them. I have a lot of their records. And for Der Blutarch and the Church of the Infinite Leading Hand or whatever. But originally Der Blutarch. And Der Blutarch started in the same kind of realm, but more martial, but also just like very harsh. And they ended up going in like a desert rock, krautrock sort of direction when like 2005 hit. So, and a lot of those bands did that. And a lot of them did it as well as Der Blutarch did. Their transition was pretty seamless. They kind of like took their time. They didn't just immediately shift. And these guys got more refined. Another band that I would compare this band to was probably In Slaughter Natives. Also very similar vibes. I could have picked their album. Probably should have. Didn't think about it. Yeah, really good.
Cool. Yeah, I've heard the In Slaughter Natives, but I don't know them particularly well.
Their first album is amazing. It's a killer industrial record, but it's also very, you know, toys with a lot of ambience and atmospherics. So I like it a lot.
Okay, yeah, it's one that's spoken of very highly by the folks who know it, tend to really like it. Good deal.
The problem with Cold Meat is that like a lot of their bands kind of teeter into that sketch territory that like, you know, so.
Yeah,
like
something to keep
MZ,
in mind.
MZ412, great band, sketchy people.
Yeah, comes with the territory sometimes, unfortunately.
Right.
All right, very cool, very interesting. Let's see. All right, I thought this would be one of my kind of cool unknown picks for later in the night, but folks are already asking for it in the chat. Should have known. I couldn't get this one past the chat very easily. So we'll talk about Atomcraft for a minute. I don't have a physical copy of this one, but I picked, Queen of Death, one of their EPs. I think this is 87. Atomcraft these days are probably best known for being Tony Dolan's band back in the early and mid 80s. The band actually goes back to the late 70s, though. They started much more in like, you know, the punk and hardcore scene, and then kind of drifted in the Venom direction. Yeah, for a lot of times, especially for the first half of the 80s, the shorthand was like, oh yeah, Atomcraft's kind of like, you know, a junior Venom type band. And they actually knew the guys in Venom, got along well. They toured with them a couple of times in those early days. But yeah, they became more and more thrashy as the years went by. There were a lot of lineup changes through Atomcraft's time, but yeah, they play into that a bit. Now, again, it's, you know, this is, you know, mid 80s, and again, as we've discussed at other times, mid 80s British heavy metal bands didn't get a whole lot of love when it came to budgets for things like art or production or anything. So yeah, this is pretty simple, basic post-apocalyptic type imagery, but it still works. And their songs do kind of lean into that more destructive side of things. The band had promised, they got an album out on Neat Records. There was supposed to be a follow-up, but yeah, that one just never.
Future Warriors? Future.
Yep, Future Warriors. That's right.
Yeah, that record rules.
Yep, and yeah, there's a couple of EPs, and those were later compiled onto one, album collection that kind of looked like an album, but it was just the two EPs put together. So it was one of those bands that had some traction at a certain point, but as we've discussed at other times too, thrash in the UK just had trouble ever getting off the ground. Thrash, it was one of the few heavy styles back then that wasn't a British invention. So they had to kind of try to borrow it from the Americans and the Germans and other scenes and make their own thrash, which played out with varying results. I think Adam Kraft's one of the better bands, though, that went in that heavier style. And oddly, they're not one that gets discussed very often. When we've had the UK thrash discussion before, Adam Kraft is usually one of the last names that people are like, oh yeah, don't forget about that too. People focus more on Virus and Zentrix and other bands, some of which I think we'll probably circle back to a little while later, because Adam Kraft wasn't the only UK thrash band that was doing toying around with the post-apocalyptic angle of things. But they were one of the ones that was a little bit better at it. And yeah, just to show that life is full of fun little ironies, Tony Dolan, of course, would eventually end up in Venom rather than just... The rumor was always that, well, Adam Kraft was touring with Venom. They were basically also functionally roadies for Venom. Jury's still out on whether that was how true that is. But to go from opening act and possible roadie to actually being a main component of the band for many years, yep, good for Tony Nolan. It's kind of one of the cool little stories that's played out.
And now he's in one of 3 Venom named bands.
He's in one of them at least.
Yeah.
Virus was cool until they committed the cardinal sin of doing one of the one terrible cover songs, like "Thou Shalt Not" cover the Beatles' "Steppenwolf" or the Munsters theme song, which is what Virus did on First Recon, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, fans always fall into one of those temptations, but that's a good list of things to avoid for sure. But yes, I jumped Adam Kraft to the front of the line since multiple people in the chat were already asking for that one. Good call, folks.
That's a good pick, man.
We had it covered. All right, thank you, Eric. Marty, we did not skip you, so you're up to bat.
Thought the lettuce got me, but I'm good. Anyway,
as long as it's not Taylor Farms, you're safe, Marty.
Right. I don't know what farm this stuff came from, but it didn't look good. We're going to continue on with the mechanized inbreeding of industrial with metal or heavier music, and that would be Godflesh with Street Cleaner. You've got pitch-shifted vocals on songs like Rats that is just so ugly and sounds like it's from another dimension. Christbait Rising. And then there's a lot of noise elements on this record as well. So... But they mix the two together really quite in an appealing manner, so it doesn't feel completely alienating, but still it kind of gives you a glimpse at the end of the world sometimes. This band is pretty repetitive, and if your main rhythm source is an Alesis HR-16 drum machine, which is what he used for a long time, I get that because I've worked with that drum machine. It's a pain in the ass. It's not really, you want to program like these real elaborate drum patterns, and it doesn't want you to do that. So you have to, and it makes sense the way this band turned out because of that choice, that rhythm choice. But it worked for them so well, and they exploited it for many, many years. Sadly, it sounds like the project's, at least the live side of Godflesh, is coming to an end. I don't know if he's going to, I think there might be one more album in the can, but this is another one I need to be in the mood for, but when that mood hits, I love it. I really love the self-titled and Selfless are my two, I think, favorites. But I really like this one. This is the first one I heard. Like a lot of people, I think Street Cleaner was a lot of people's entry into the Godflesh world. And it's a very ugly, twisted, unique world. And it's on fire.
Yeah, nice pick, Marty. I thought about pulling that, but I knew A, you would pull it, and B, you know a lot more about them, so I did not. It's a band I want to dig into a little bit more, but like you said, I got to be in the right mood for it. But when you are, that album is just oppressively crushing.
Yep. All right. Eric's back.
Okay. This is, I don't know. If anybody's heard of this, kudos. But I could not pick this, especially when I was because I didn't want to limit myself to just like LPs or tapes or CDs. So I went through the small format shit too. And I ended up pulling this gem from Mexico, Hardware, Souls Vortex. Oh, and everything's falling out. Look at that. This is killer. Mexican industrial death metal. When I say industrial, it's kind of a shoddy attempt at industrial. There are keyboards and synths on here, but they're like the recording quality is not great. But I love that about this. Thematically, it's all about AI and the synchronicity taking over, humanity being laid waste by machines. I mean, you see this guy's being used as a war drum for battle androids in the background.
It's cool.
First of all, I mean, the cover art is amazing. First of all, look at this guy's fucking, he's having the worst day of his life.
Looks like Joe Biafra.
He's having a pretty good day, this guy right here. Yeah, this record's awesome. Innsmouth Records is probably the only thing I own from that. It's a label out of Mexico. Yeah, just rad. It's I mean, it's not like, it's not gonna blow your mind when you hear it, like, but it's very quaint and of the time. I think this came out, I don't have a date on here, 91. It sounds like 1991. Imagine like if Toxo Death had industrial elements, or Organic Infest had industrial elements, you'd get something that sound kind of like this. And they really wanted you to know that they hated humanity and wanted the world to end. Very edgy, edgy stuff. Yeah, but it's good. It's good. Definitely recommend at least listening to it on YouTube. I'm pretty sure it's on YouTube. Really good. If not, shitty sounding, but that's part of the charm.
Right on. All right, Ellen.
All right. Well, we cannot get through a discussion of post-apocalyptic kind of heavy music without talking about Mad Max.
There we go.
Yeah, the name's kind of spot on for the time.
Right on the nose.
The music, not so much. To be clear, this one is here strictly because the band called themselves Mad Max, and that's kind of the go-to movie most people are going to default to when you say, post-apocalyptic something. As you can tell, these guys probably were not ready to plunge into that post-apocalyptic hellscape and duke it out with other mutated survivors crawling through a radioactive wasteland. These guys, well, we got a solid mustache over here for Aaron, who's in the chat. We got a good 80s headband going on over here.
The headband.
Got a bunch of guys trying to look tough that really can't pull it off at all.
The headband is, Alan, I hope you're happy to know that the headband is making a resurgence.
I'm not surprised. We'll just leave it at that. But yeah, so Mad Max musically does not fit the bill. This was a German metal band. They go back to at least 1981 for their first release. I never see or hear folks talk about that much. They made a couple of albums, though, more in the mid-'80s. This was Rolling Thunder from 1984, one of the better known ones that they did. It's just good, sort of traditional German heavy metal. It leans a little bit on the melodic side. This is not even as like rough and gruff as Accept, okay? Like Udo and Wolf would have like beaten these guys up and taken their beer money. So we're talking like started accept and move towards the hard rock side, not towards the combat in a nuclear wasteland side. But there are some really good songs on here that are catchy. My go-to on here is the opening track, Fly, Fly Away. Just has this kind of really catchy chorus, kind of a great soaring German metal anthem. There are some other good ones. There are a few that are, well, let's just say below average. It's not consistent front to back, but it's not a bad album. I picked it up very cheap at a record show and was happy to do so. Not the kind of thing you should go out and spend years hunting and a fortune trying to pick up. But not a bad album. A lot of folks like their second album. I want to say it's called something like Stormbringer, Stormcaller. I don't have that one, but it's reportedly pretty comparable in style. So yes, this is not the soundtrack to Armageddon. This is more like the soundtrack to, a bunch of guys that look like this hanging out in a very safe, well-lit area, having a time.
They're too handsome for the apocalypse.
Well, that's always, now that was a problem with the 80s, though. To be fair to Mad Max, let's be honest. Any depiction of a post-apocalyptic anything in the 1980s, everybody was always too clean. I mean, even you watch The Road Warrior, and again, you're in the middle of this desert, and they're all riding, put together choppers and shooting each other, and every one of them, they're waxed, they're perfectly manscaped, well groomed, clothes are clean, just like.
I don't know, man.
How you guys like supposed to be some kind of? Yeah,
even in the apocalypse, I made sure I had shit to groom my gear. I don't know. It's just made up.
It's like, hey, we might live in a hellscape. That doesn't mean we can't, sort our whites and our colors when we hit the laundromat every 4 days. You got to look good when you're out raiding and pillaging and doing all that kind of stuff. Oh, but it's always been one of those funny things when you look at 80s movies like that compared to more modern ones. In the modern ones, they want to make it as grim and gritty and dirty as they can. Then you go back and watch Road Warrior, and everyone's just squeaky clean through every single scene. The big fight's over, and like Mel Gibson's got like one little smudge, like right there on the cheek. But Mad Max definitely looks like that kind of Armageddon battle party. Not the more recent ones. They would not have. These guys would not have lasted very long on Fury Road.
Oh God.
And the new genre is born, metal theologian metal. So everybody, we need to make that stick. Thanks, Scott, for making that happen a reality.
Metal theologian metal is just an extension of Greeno music.
Right. Right. Okay. Talking about some Australian bands in the chat, and I did pull this. I am not the world's biggest Portal fan. This is the
it very much fits though.
Swarth. This thing is just, it's talented. I like the aesthetic. Masks and metal are synonymous these days. You gotta do something to stand apart from everybody else, I guess. So everybody decided to put on a mask or put a noose around their neck, and this band did both. And the music is what I struggle with. It is an art project. I guess it matches the aesthetic, but it's very chaotic, very noisy. There at times, I threw this on again to be refamiliarized, and I get halfway through the album and I take it off. A lot of it feels improvisational. I know that's probably not the case, but there's a lot of room in this music for riffs that sound like they were noisy, came up on the spot, and they wouldn't be able to be recreated the same way live. That is a hypothesis. I don't know if that's right or not, but this is definitely one of those bands that write for the apocalypse. It's just nightmarish, claustrophobic feeling. It makes you feel small and huddled. It makes you want to get into a safety cuddle with Mad Max. Get the center of that safety cuddle, by the guy with the skinny arms and the dude with the sweet stash, to make all the scary guys go away. But
hey, Marty, hop on the Autobahn and take the discotheque. We have the beer and be safe, yeah?
Fun on the Autobahn. Swarth by Portal. Apocalyptic music for sure. in theme and execution. If you like this stuff, I get it. It's. I wish I could crack the code, but I need songs. I like hooks. Man, all that stuff is thrown into a meat grinder with this band, and I'm not too into the byproduct.
Yeah.
Eric,
it's a
sorry.
tough listen.
Okay.
I kind of like it. I need to spend more time on them. But yeah, you're exactly right, Marty. It's not an easy thing to wrap your head around. But I feel like there is something to it that I want to explore. I just haven't got back around to it. But I pulled the same album you did, Svarth. So yeah, very good pick. Very appropriate.
All right. You're back, Eric.
Leather strip, Science for the Satanic Citizen. First leather strip. This is a reissue of their first EP. There's some unnecessary bonus tracks that always irritate the shit. However, the EP, one of the best industrial EPs ever, in my opinion, and absolutely one of the most grim, malevolent, pessimistic albums I think ever recorded, at least in the industrial realm. Tracks like Zyklon B, Satanic Citizen, What's Hell Really Like. This album oozes apocalyptic atmosphere. And again, one of the best industrial albums ever, in my opinion. Just
it's on my list.
I love Leather Strip in general. But this EP, like, he never did anything like this EP after this. He tried with like Underneath the Laughter, but had a few too epic aspirations on that album, i.e. the like 20-minute long album title song. Solitary Confinement, the first full length, was killer, however, but totally different themes than this one. This is all just like basically imagine if World War II had ended the world, and that's what you kind of get with this right here.
The only leather strip I own is Serenade for the Dead, I think is the name of it. It's an instrumental album.
That's a later one. That's good.
It's good. It's just I need vocals sometimes, and I'm never in the mood for it.
Yeah,
but that one's been recommended to me for sure. Yeah, I think it was you that recommended it. I just haven't got around to it yet.
This one's killer. Solitary Confinement is awesome, but it's like all S&M themed, which is rad too. And then Underneath the Laughter is also super cool, but that one's like more geared around like the idea of cults, like the Jim Jones shit and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, they're really good. Like, hard to say that they had a really bad record until post 2000, and even then, it just wasn't necessarily bad, just kind of like boring.
Yeah. All right, Ellen.
All right, let's go with the one. No, it's a bit on the goofy side. This is, as far as I know, the only thing the band recorded, which might be a good thing. This is not the best album to ever grace vinyl grooves. It's by a band called Grudge. Pretty generic album cover, big metal bird of a thing. The album is called, however, Barbarians of the New Earth, which very much has a post-apocalyptic ring, leading into that kind of Mad Max thing. The band, well, these are your Barbarians of the New Earth.
Is this Loverboy or is this metal? What is this? Headbands.
It is. It's very 80s. I think this came out around 86, as I recall.
Those are catalog looks right there. Let me tell you.
These guys may or may not have seen the softer side of Sears at some point. Or just leave it at that.
Is that the Jacqueline Smith collection from Kmart?
Musically, I almost want to describe them as like they kind of wanted to be a little bit like a Junior Carnivore. They're not as thrashy or over the top, but they're going for sort of the same attitude. It's kind of noisy, kind of clanky at times, and the songs are a little scattered, but definitely they feel like they're trying to push something over the top, and maybe they occasionally get there, and maybe sometimes they're falling just a little short. But you do have song titles like Barbarian Queen, Alien Hunter, Grudge War, some things that lean into the theme a little bit. Other song titles, though, don't mesh with those. You also have one called White House Sluts, which is like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a fun title, but it just doesn't mesh with the others. The best title on the album, however, is track 3 with Maximum Suction. Yeah, and again, it feels like maybe they were trying to draw some influences from like a punk or hardcore scene that they weren't heavily invested in, but they liked enough to want to work it into what they were trying to do. So yeah, it's a real odd album. I've never heard anybody gush about it, and I understand why. It does not quite measure up. It's good enough that I did track it down and I wanted to own a copy, so I did. But yeah, please don't run out and spend all your lunch money buying this because I held it up on camera. It's not that kind of album. Aaron's probably got things to say about this one. But it is kind of fun, is what it comes down to. It's kind of a fun listen because it is a bit amateurish and it is a bit off. And you just do have these guys trying really hard to get there, but maybe not quite ready for the big time. But that is Grudge, Barbarians of the New Earth. It is not an album I play often. It's not one I get to show very often, but it does kind of fit the topic for tonight, so I wasn't going to miss the opportunity to share it.
There you
go. All right. Well, Eric showed some cool underground industrial. I'm going to show some Capitol Records industrial, of course. Skinny Puppy with Last Rites.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I remember when this came out, and in Too Dark Park to a certain extent as well. The goth people in the dance clubs were bitching because Skinny Puppy was getting too harsh to dance to, and I dig that. In Last Rites, I think Too Dark Park is maybe a better album in my opinion, but I'm looking at Nowhere, Inquisition, Scrapyard. They're just getting so noisy and apocalyptic sounding. The layering is more intense, more aggressive, and just this album is very bipolar. Then you got Killing Game, which is kind of their attempt at a twisted ballad, and it's the second song on the album. But big fan of Skinny Puppy, and really they're the industrial band all others wish they were. They just
honestly
had the go ahead.
Sorry.
No,
I was just gonna say that whole trilogy of Too Dark Park, Last Rites, and Process are just. I know a lot of people shit talk the Process, but that album rules. I know it doesn't have, Dwayne, but it's a killer record, and the themes on all three of those records are so fucking dark.
Yep, very dark. And just their whole way of approaching the songwriting, it felt free, and they're working on broken gear to get some of the sounds they got, and Kevin Key's use of the radio going in between stations, and how all these little things that they just threw into the music and then recreate it live. And if you watch that Ain't It Dead Yet video, the songs might be even better live. They're even more nightmarish live, and seeing Ogre act it out, it's just a bloody mess. It's so fucking inspiring, and I kind of wish that more industrial bands went that extra step and took their music into more artistic avenues. Some did, but none of them touched on the greatness of Skinny Puppy. Anyway, Eric.
Okay. I'm going to show I promise I'm going to show some fucking raging metal shit too. But Current 93, Lucifer over London.
That's killer.
Just an amazing Current 93 record. I know they often get pigeonholed as like neo-folk, but there's a little bit of fucking everything on this album, and it's just a spiritual like journey through like the end times. David Tibbett's lyrics are so like, I don't want to necessarily say profound, but they speak to just like a certain mindset and a certain sort of like curiosity and a certain sort of pessimism there's like humor in the pessimism. So while he's kind of positing about like the end of the world and stuff like that on this album, specifically like the end of the UK in a lot of cases, fucking just stellar. It's a funny record on top of being just like completely grim. And that's one of the things I love about Current 93 in general, is that he's charming and he has a lot of humor and a lot of heart and soul in what he puts out. This is probably one of my favorites. It's a reissue from last year. I think they're currently working on reissuing everything up through at least, I think, all the Pretty Horses. So I'm kind of waiting on Thunder Perfect Mind in that one. But this is, of those, this is one of my favorites at this point. Like, just awesome. And absolutely like a melancholic jaunt through the end times. It's rad.
All right. Hey, Mike, what's up? And Alan, you're up. You're muted.
Thank you. Yep, had to get something out of plastic. Okay, let's do another really oddball one. This is a band that you could call them metal. I've also heard them referred to, though, as just outsider music, and for good reason. This is a project known as Dwarr, Dwarr. One-man project, released a couple of albums, and they have a, society has crumbled into chaos kind of vibe about them. You pick it up on the cover art, and now keep in mind, these are very much self-recorded, self-everything, independent releases, but they're from, let me look at the years. I want to say late 80s. Oh, the first one's from 84. It's mid-80s, so there ain't no Pro Tools to help this guy. There is no YouTube videos on how to, use the right plugins to get a sound. This is somebody who really wants to make music and doesn't really know how to make music, but is doing it all on their own. The first Dwarr album is called Starting Over. And you have this very distinct cover with kind of a Planet of the Apes-like scene, Statue of Liberty's, just barely above water. And they followed that up a few years later, 1986, with an album called Animals. And once again, a very do-it-yourself, I don't know how to draw, but I'm going to make this work kind of album cover. It's going to be hard to see. I used to have a copy of this one, but I gave it to somebody. It's not really my kind of thing, but somebody else was interested and was like, here, I'll send it to you. There's all these little cave people on here, and they're actually like murdering each other, and there's cannibalism going on. So the closer you look, the more disturbing it gets. At first, it just was kind of like, oh, haha, funny, they can't draw well, but it's probably a good thing they can't draw very well, because it gets kind of creepy. And again, it's heavy music, but I don't know if it's fair to call it metal or not. The Animals record comes closer, but the outsider label would definitely apply here. It's one guy, he hears it in his head. He's trying to figure out how to let you hear it through the instruments and the grooves. And something gets lost in translation along the way. But yeah, the creepy album cover art alone made me think of it for post-apocalyptic metal. The originals of these have gotten kind of hard to find and actually a little pricey, but they did get reissued. I want to say it's probably been now 15 years or more since the reissues were done, but hopefully you can still find the reissued copies for a reasonable price if you're interested in them. Again, do not expect metal music per se. Just expect kind of heavy-ish and weird, probably something to preview before you spend money on it, to be honest. But yeah, if you like that really far out there kind of stuff, Dwarr might be a project that you want to check out. I don't know what else to say about that, so I'm just going to pass it on over to Marty.
All right. Well, this is the second Nagelfar E in there. They're a German band. The band before Ruins of Beverast. The name of this album is Strandgorth. This album is just absolutely crushing. The first track is 17, almost 18 minutes long, and it is pieced together like an apocalyptic masterpiece. You could hear, it's funny, the drummer ended up being Runes of Beverast, but the essence of Naglfar he brought with him, the guitar tone, the style in which the riffs are played is very reminiscent of the Naglfar stuff. But yeah, this record is, the core of it's black metal, but it's the more modern, dark, has a different, it doesn't sound Scandinavian. It has its own imprint or its own identity, its own thumbprint is what I'm trying to say. And the distorted, half clean, half distorted bass tone, the first track when it kicks in is so intense. It feels like the bombs are falling from the sky. You got to get head for cover. But
are those bombs stuffed into corpses?
No, these are just regular conventional weaponry.
Standard munitions.
Standard munitions. No bloated corpses stuffed with bombs on the battlefield here. But
I thought frozen corpses were stuffed with dope.
That's a sludge stuff. Yeah, that's a sludge war. But if you've not heard this band, all three of their albums are really good. There's a whole bunch of other releases. I don't know if they're demos or what they are. I've never hunted down, or EPs. I have no idea. I just have the three on CD. Well, one of them on vinyl as well. But great band. And if you like Runes of Beverast, you will not be disappointed with Naglfar. Check them out.
Yeah. Their stuff sometimes is a little hard to find, but if you poke around online, folks, you can find them for a decent price on occasion. So don't run out and pay like $30-$40 without shopping around a little.
What were you saying, Eric?
Have you heard that guy's band Truppensturm? It's like war metal, but it has that fucking punch that like Ruins have and that band had.
I have not heard it.
It's like imagine Ruins and that band doing war metal, and that's what you get with Truppensturm. It's really good.
Wow. Right on.
Yeah.
All right. Eric is back.
Okay. I told you I'm gonna show some shit that rules, some raging shit. I could not include this record. This is Lysergic with dimethyltrypticon. It's a war metal record. I mean, to kind of like just like, I don't know. What would you say? That's denigrated, I suppose. But this album is special. It is like, imagine, there was an era where Revenge didn't just always sound exactly like what you expect to hear when you hear Revenge. Those early albums, those early recordings are fucking killer. But kind of imagine Revenge, Order from Chaos on LSD, and that's what you get with this. So it's super tripped out war metal. It's absolutely apocalyptic, chaotic, just satanic insanity. It has groove to it. It's got a really like awesome low end. This was released by Ixial, and everything Ixial puts out is generally at least interesting, if not good. And this is kind of along those lines. It's but this is good. I was a little bit skeptical because, you've heard one war metal record, you've probably heard what most war metal sounds like.
It's got one voice, basically.
Yeah, you got, pitch shifted vocals, of course. The songs are fucking gnarly and fast. But one of the things I really like about this record is so a theory that I've kind of been working on, not scientifically or anything like that, although I do think I'm correct, is that pretty much all war metal just stems from the third Bathory record. It's just sped up really fast and dirtier, filthier, grimier, more satanic. And this is one of those records where you can still hear those riffs, and they're all memorable and just sick as fuck. And I would say, like I said, imagine if Revenge or Order from Chaos did a bunch of acid and put out a record. But I wouldn't, probably listen to this on acid. It's probably not going to lead to a good time. But it's a rad record. You should all hear it. Lysergic, dimethyltrypticon. It's killer.
All right.
Cool.
Ellen.
All right. This next one's going to seem a little odd at first, but it does work from a certain angle. It is the band Satan. Now, most people are familiar with like this album, Court in the Act, or the more recent albums they've done since their sort of comeback. These don't really fit the bill. But what most people maybe overlook is Satan has a weird short period a little later in the 80s where they went for like a very different kind of image that kind of leans into the whole Mad Max thing a bit. After Court in the Act, again, you had lineup issues, you had label issues. It was the mid 80s. Those kind of bands were falling out of style. They had to sort of make things work. There's a point where after Brian Ross had left, Satan hooked up with Lou Taylor, who is from another band named Saracen, not the Saracen that made some albums and singles, but they ended up changing their name to Blind Fury for an album, and that album's kind of watered down, and then they get rid of Lou Taylor and switch back to Satan, and they're trying to figure out what the hell to do. It's a real convoluted mess. But they end up recording a demo around 86 called Dirt, and Steamhammer picked up on it and put it out as an EP called Into the Future, which I used to have this, and I have no idea what I did with it. But yeah, this is the Into the Future EP by Satan. It got billed by Steamhammer as a mini LP, but it's only got 4 songs, and none of them are particularly long, so it does not really fit the definition for mini LP at all. But yeah, they had the big mushroom kind of cloud going on behind the logo. It's one of the few times they released something with a title that didn't have some kind of legal joke going on. A lot of their albums are always like Court in the Act and Suspended Sentence and Objection Overruled and stuff like that. But this one, they were going for a different vibe. The cover art leans into that. But the band photos at the time, let me pull one of those up, also play with the whole Mad Max thing. Now, we were joking earlier how in the 80s, your post-apocalyptic actors always had to be super squeaky clean. Here's the exception that proves the rule. Satan went for this really weird phase. Oops, sorry. Let's get that pulled back up. Satan at the time decided they were going to sort of build themselves as, looking like they had just crawled out of the rubble of a nuclear war. So their clothes are all completely torn up, very ratty, very filthy, covered in mud and dirt all over themselves. And so they went for this very, very different image around the time of this EP. After this, I kind of lose track of the Satan plot, but to my knowledge, this is the only era of the band where they went for a little bit more of an apocalyptic look to at least the art and the packaging. Again, when they came back a decade or so ago, it was back to the kind of classic Court in the Act and Suspended Sentence. Even when Suspended Sentence came out, I think they had moved away from this already. So it's this weird little blip in the Satan catalog. I barely remember what the EP sounds like. It's been ages, and I did not get a chance to replay this because I only remembered this one this afternoon. It's like, oh, that would be a fun one to discuss. So mid-80s, post-Lou Taylor Satan has this really grimy, dirty, we survived Armageddon kind of appeal to it. There you go. Satan's Into the Future EP. Or the Dirt demo if you've got the original demo instead.
All right. Well, people mentioned this early on in the chat tonight, but thankfully it was in my stack. Into Darkness by Winter. This is a reissue CD with the Eternal Frost on it as well. But this album sounds like the cover. A land devastated by war. The end of the war, during the war, I don't know, but you mix. We were talking about crust being mixed with death metal on the Prophecy of Doom earlier, but this here crust is mixed with, like Hellhammer or Celtic Frost isms, and it's a patient listen, but I really always enjoyed how this band, even though their influences are probably Amoebics and Hellhammer and stuff like that. It's very much pretty unique for the scene. Nuclear Blast put this out. Kind of interesting. Kind of interesting that happened. But the band broke up and turned into Godin, which is the name of the song, or Godin, however you say it. It's on one of the songs on this album. And it's kind of carried the spirit of Winter, but added a lot more, some experimental ideas in with it. Pretty cool stuff. We did get a promo for their last album. I liked it. It was good. Enjoyable stuff. But this here is just crushing, pummeling, crust-tinged heaviness. Very good. A little bit of Celtic Frostisms when the pace picks up a little bit. But,
That shit's so good.
It's infrequent, but it's very cool. And again, it feels like you are in a landscape devastated by war. And there's smoke and bodies and fires everywhere. Great record.
Yep. Yeah, and you're right, Marty. It was a weird fit for that label, and they could not give copies away at the time. It was one of those. I remember the catalogs throughout the mid '90s. It was always one of the $5 bargain CDs or buy two for $8, and just issue after issue after issue of this catalogs. Poor Winter Into Darkness was always there.
Yeah,
it took a while for that album to really catch on in the underground.
That's one of those records that kind of like helped me expand my sense of what was awesome in music, especially like punk, crust, metal, that kind of shit. Doing something a little bit different. It's up there with, like, for me, Neurosis, His Hero Is Gone, super important bands for me. That Winter record's just like 10 out of 10.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right. So, if someone were to ask me, hey, Eric, if you were to sit inside of an AC 130 and rain fire down on the world, what record would you play while doing it? It would be this record by Nagasaki Sunrise, Nostalgia. And what you have here is what looks like just like a generic D-beat record. Nagasaki Sunrise are from Portugal, if I'm not mistaken. This was released by Monolith Records. And there, to be sure, there are D-beat elements here, but this is a metal punk record. It would go very hand in hand with like City Weapons by Inepsy. But more new wave of British heavy metal inspired with this. This is some fucking gloriously triumphant tunage right here. Every record makes you want to just like drop a bomb on something, or like if you're listening to it in the car, rip your steering wheel out of the steering column and throw it at a truck. Sure, you're probably both going to crash and die, but it'll be worth it because of the tunage. It's not bleak, it's not miserable, it's not gloomy, it's not doomy, but there's something about it that just like exudes a sense of like victorious like valor. It's just so good. I love this shit. They have a newer album out. This is their first record. They actually played, they toured out here about 2 years back, and I missed them. It's unfortunate because they played a bar that's like 2 blocks from where I used to live before I moved into this spot. But this is just killer. Anybody who likes like latter era like Wolf Brigade, just kind of picture that, but with like a singer who like sounds majestic as fuck, and that's what you get with this Nagasaki Sunrise. It's so fucking good. I can't urge people enough to listen to this. It's killer.
That's a great name for a band. I like that.
All right.
Super good. I think even you'd like it, Alan. Honestly, like there's a lot to like with that record. Like it's not just like a D-beat record. It's very good.
Yeah. No, it sounds interesting. I'll keep that one in mind to check out.
Gotta love a good D-beat album, though.
It
always hits the spot. It's the spot.
From time to time, it hits the spot, even for me. Yep, it's not my core sound, but every now and then, you're in the mood for it. Let's see next. Okay, we've often so far approached the idea of like post-apocalyptic scenarios as being like very violent, a lot of combat, stuff like that. There is another tradition on how this sometimes gets approached, which is you've had some kind of giant calamity, the world's come to an end, people are kind of shuffling around in the wreckage to put it back together, but it has a little more of like a gloomy tone that gets imposed on the landscape. It's like, all right, some of you have survived. You're not going to survive all that long, but folks aren't necessarily like just looking to shoot it out as hard and fast as they can. It's more like mankind's going to just kind of gradually dwindle as the lights go out. And it was an author more than an album that made me think of this right away, but I have an album to tie into it. It's the Clark Ashton Smith's writings, particularly for the Zothique cycle of stories. Clark Ashton Smith, people often, of course, with heavy metal tend to think more Lovecraft and Howard for their pulp fantasy kind of inspirations. Smith doesn't seem to get as much attention, and I'm not really sure why that is. The material's extremely well written. He's a bit closer to Tolkien in terms of writing capability. He comes across a little more poetic in the way he writes. The stories are still very interesting. And I guess he did like a range of different types of stories. These people often did. They couldn't write just one type of story and make a living. The Zothique sequence is set in a future Earth where the planet is dying. And I don't think you're ever really told what happened or why, but the background of the world is just that it's all shutting down. Yeah, the sun is described as like, it's already in like, this red phase of a dying star that it could blink out any year or explode or just, go cold. You get the sense that, this planet is not long for this universe anymore. But again, it's not that you have guys, rampaging across the desert in, the last of the V8 interceptors or anything. Instead, you have this kind of weird sword and sorcery like environment that pops up. There's a return to mysticism and magic and weird cults scrabbling around in the subterranean, sewers, maybe finding some kind of dark entity to latch onto to try to help themselves gain just a little bit of power or a little something to help them survive. It's a foregone conclusion that it's lost. There is no save the world or bring it back to the good old days. It's like, nah, this is what it is now, and you're just going to have to write it out. But it brings in, again, a lot more of a sword and sorcery element, which typically would make you think more fantasy or epic metal. But there's one band I think that kind of bridges this pretty nicely. It's a band I gush about very often, and it is Kirathungal. Kirathungal, had a lot of inspirations from these kind of pulp writers and the fantasy side of things. But they had it in this more sort of, angry, the world's falling apart way. And in interviews, they've stressed that a lot of that comes from their sort of more hippie side, that they often describe their music as like, they're really just like protest songs that are steeped in this kind of apocalyptic heavy metal imagery rather than just, peace and love or, political lyrics. It's like, they're all protest songs. We're just angry about shit all the time. But especially like on Paradise Lost, you kind of get that same weird, eerie vibe that you get from some of Clark Ashton Smith's writings. The last three songs on the album are a trilogy, and it kind of plays out where, like, yes, you're having some big final event that hits the reset button. So that as you head into the final track, which is the title track, Paradise Lost, you're having kind of this resurgence that maybe at first glance looks like, oh, hey, great, things survived and it's going better. But the music's very uneasy. It's kind of disquieting. It very much gives you the sense that it all is not right in this particular garden of paradise. Something's not good here, but it's all that's left. Gareth Ungle, again, weren't above working in a lot of the fantasy elements too. The cover art from Michael Whalen, from authors like Michael Moorcock and such. So yeah, they bridged that really nicely. They also did some stuff that was just more straightforward in the No Holds Barred Battle of Armageddon stuff. Their One Foot in Hell album in particular, I felt like had a real apocalyptic vibe to it, with tracks like Blood and Iron and Doomed Planet. Right there, the song title kind of says it all. But Paradise Lost has more of that, yeah. And those last 3 songs in particular, this album is a bit uneven, but those last 3 songs are as good as anything they recorded. And they very much make me think of this particular strain of a post-apocalyptic landscape. Not one that's wrecked by warfare all the time. Not one, again, you never really know what happened. It may just be that the planet got too old. And you're just in the dying phases of a world. And you're getting a look at it. It's from almost this kind of eerie, quiet, sedate. It's like, well, that's the way it is. And there's weird shit going on, but you're looking at it down at a more personal level, not in armies duking it out for one last go. So yeah, a different style of Armageddon, if you will, for Gareth Ungle and Clark Ashton Smith. Good stuff to check out. Thank you to our buddy S. Craig Zoller for turning me on to this. I had never checked out any of his stuff before, but it's a good read.
All right,
Marty. Sorry that one took a while.
Oh, go for it. Awesome. I am not the world's biggest brutal death or slam death metal fan. It's one voice, doesn't have much to say. There's an exception to every rule, and this album, though it's not really coming lyrically from an apocalyptic viewpoint or concept, it's the music always struck me as very apocalyptic, and that would be Devourment's Obscene Majesty. This album is... What's that?
I thought you were going to show a Party Cannon record. That's...
Well, clean up all that confetti is very, chaotic, and it could be apocalyptic.
You could put somebody's eye out with a piece of that confetti, man.
You could. But this album is just absolutely layered and twisted and apocalyptic in structure and attack. And as stupid as bass drops are, when they hit in this album, it's like the exclamation point. It's not just, smoke weed and, misogynistic shit. What's that?
Go lift weights for like 5 years and you'll love bass drops.
Right. Right on. Well, I never really cared much about them until having this cranked in a vehicle we have that has a decent subwoofer in it, and kind of like, holy shit. It's a good emphasis, but this is a very apocalyptically crafted music, and I'm not, like I said, I have maybe 10 brutal death metal or slammy. I don't know if I would even call this straight up slam, but it definitely hints at it. There's definitely a bit of that influence there, but these guys are just more malevolent sounding and musically apocalyptic. I think it's more serial killer type of lyrics and whatnot, but man, we covered this for the album club, and it's a favorite. I think this is a really well done album. It takes a lot to piece through it. There's so much going on. There are songs here, but you got to fight for them. And I like the challenge when it comes to music like this, because typically slam death metal, there is not a challenge. It is, pit-inducing music, and that's really about its contribution. Like war metal. War metal's got kind of one contribution. If you like that contribution, right on. But this offers a little bit of variety and insanity, I think, adding that to the brutal world. Anyway, Eric, you're back.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Hell yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Here we go. What? Yeah, okay. We'll show this. No, we'll show this. That's it. Sorry. Okay. Dephosphorus. Axiom. Greek grind. Psychedelic grind, I guess, would be to pigeonhole this band. This record is, it's brutal as fuck. I first heard of this band, when did this come out? Let's see. There's a MySpace address on the back of it, so it's pretty old.
It's old, yeah.
There's the gatefold. I first heard this. I think Cult Nation wrote about these guys, and then there's an older channel that doesn't put up content anymore, called JGC Sound, and he was obsessed with this band, which kind of turned me onto this album. 2010 is when this came out, and this is just psychedelic apocalyptic grind. I mean, if you like that exploding corpse action, imagine that a bit more refined, lengthier songs, not as sloppy. This album is it's stellar. I don't think it's the best Phosphorus record, but it's the first one, and it's probably the heaviest. It's the least refined out of all their stuff. Has the most in common with like death metal, in my opinion. It's got that bolt thrower chug, but it's also very Greek, which I appreciate about it.
You're saying a lot of good things here. We should maybe check that one out.
Yeah, this band is rad. They had a record last year, and it's amazing. It was released by, goddammit, Nervalter, I believe, put it out, and it's stellar. They don't have a bad record, in my opinion. They've done splits. They've been on comps with like black metal bands. There's black metal elements to this album, which just add to the malevolence and the bleakness of this record. It's fucking killer. If you like grind, specifically like thinking man's grind or thinking woman's grind, this is a good band for you, because it's not just like knuckle dragging defecation worship, which is nothing wrong with that, but it's just, and you know, it'll make you want to fucking push the button. The button. Right.
All right. Alan. Muted.
Yep, trying to put things away as I go without making noise. I'm glad you clarified the button, because anytime somebody says push the button, my default is to think of the Ren and Stimpy episode with the history eraser button. Which, yeah, is not the button you're referring to.
No.
But it is pretty apocalyptic.
It wouldn't be inappropriate, you know?
Hey, don't touch it, you fool! It's the history eraser button.
Exactly.
Man, I just watched a documentary of the maker of that a week ago, 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
It really changed my views on the whole Ren and Stimpy thing. And I even looked around on YouTube and found some of the band episodes or whatever, or parts of the band episodes. That guy was broken. Broken dude.
Yeah, it becomes pretty obvious as you watch it. Anyway. Here's an album that came close to breaking a lot of people's minds when it came out. So yeah, I think it definitely fits the whole apocalyptic thing. It's got a sound that had a huge impact on death metal moving into the 21st century, often emulated, but not many folks come close to really capturing the chaos of Gorguts Obscura. Yeah, Gorguts was a very good death metal band before this. They had 2 solid albums from the earlier 90s. They wore their influences on their sleeve a bit, and they were one of those bands that came onto the scene just late enough to kind of get classified as second tier. You know, and by their own admission, starting out, they were just sort of like, well, we like these Florida bands. Can you make us sound more like those Florida bands? You know, they're kids. They're starting out. You got to begin somewhere. But then they came back with Obscura at the end of the 90s, and the leap from Erosion of Sanity to this is mind-bending. Now, to be fair, it's a very different lineup. You know, Luc Lemay had recruited a lot of new people. And this was one of those albums that really just sort of destroyed minds and reaped souls as people listened to it and tried to grasp what was happening. A lot of, dissonance, these, over the top, howling vocals out of the abyss. And it's a long album to boot. I mean, you have to listen to this for an hour to get through the whole thing. It's not 38 minutes, 8 tracks, and like, okay, I made it. It's like, nah, this one will wear you down if you're not in the mood for it, and it might wear you down if you are in the mood for it. It's an album, for whatever weird reason, I connected with when I first heard it. I got it through tape trading back in the day because people were talking about it. I was like, oh yeah, I remember them. Okay, let's see what they're doing now. So I was like, this is fucking weird, but I kind of like it a lot. So, but yeah, to this day, it's an album that it's a tough listen, even for folks that like it. It's not something you casually put on.
Yeah.
And again, it had a massive impact on death metal that would come a few years later. It's very much an album that was ahead of its time. And it may be an album that is a little overly ambitious. Even Gorguts never have tried to push it this hard since then. This is a weird 2 CD thing. But when they did From Wisdom to Hate, it's in the same style, but you can tell they were reining it in a little bit. It's like, okay, let's not be quite that insane. Let's be just a little insane. And it works too. I love this album a lot. And of course, they've done great material since then as well with Colored Sands and Pleiades Dust. We're supposed to get a new Gorguts album later this year, early next year. Everyone has said it's recorded and just waiting to be mixed and mastered. But again, you hear that about so many bands, and 3 years later, you still don't see the album. So here's hoping, but we'll see. But yeah, in terms of music that just sounds completely apocalyptic, Obscura was one that has to make the list. It kind of was one of the first things that started to rewrite the rules of death metal as death metal started to reemerge from that somewhat dead zone in the mid-90s where you had the Roadrunner purges and Earache lost their big major label connections. You had a few years there where it was a little bit lean for death metal. And when it showed back up, it showed up in some strange and terrifying new forms like Gorguts Obscura. Really cool album. Really tough listen sometimes, but I dig it.
All right.
I will mute as I put this back in the little plastic crinkly thing.
All right. Well, sticking with death metal, you don't always think of death metal as apocalyptic, I guess, but Cataclysm from Canada, the early stuff with the singer. This band completely died when Sylvain Houde is no longer in the band. Houde, however you say his last name. Saw them once on the Temple of Knowledge tour with Incantation and Exploding Zombies. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely just incredible. And the music is intense, apocalyptic, but what takes it over the top is Sylvain's vocal presentation. It's frantic. It's manic. He sounds like a crazy guy on the street, preaching about the end of the world is here. It's now. It's now. It's just absolutely over the top. And again, another one of those singers where it makes you wonder if he had stuck with it, would he have been able to maintain that level of intensity in his voice forever? Probably not. Probably not. But he's just sang from the very core of his essence. And it was violent and twisted, and
it's like they were like, "Hey, Lord Worm, Cryptopsy, can you sing like that but more insane?"
Yeah, exactly. Take the worm out of your mouth and sing a little crazier, please. Yes, but yeah, unfortunately, they did not continue onward without him. They did an EP or a mini CD and 2 full lengths, and he moved on. And the band moved on and put out one album was Victims of This Fallen World. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. And then after that, they got better. The bass player took over the vocals. Just not the same. They lost the charm. They lost the urgency. But this shit is awesome. Unlocking. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I never followed them past. I mean, there was the EP and then the first full length, and I never followed them past that first full length.
Yeah, there's an album called Temple of Knowledge is really good as well. Not as good as this stuff, but his vocal performance on it is worth getting for that. And they didn't call themselves death metal or grindcore. They called themselves Northern Hyperblast. So that was a thing. Northern Hyperblast. Great shit. Apocalyptic death metal. Again, Canada. Killer shit.
Maybe I did hear the Temple of Knowledge. I just think it's after that original singer left, I stopped listening.
Oh, he's on that one. He's on the Temple of Knowledge. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, after that, whatever, doesn't matter. It's a good pick. Okay. Not following in the death metal realm, we have Changes right here. The 7-inch Fire of Life with Icarus. Who are Changes, you might ask? Well, when talking about neofolk, neofolk clearly, obviously, like, got its start in what would be considered like apocalyptic folk. Changes were, I think, one of the original bands to be credited as being apocalyptic folk music. The first track on here, Fire of Life, was originally recorded in 1972. And then the second track, Icarus, later 1995. This was put out by Michael Moynihan, I think, put this fucking record out. Which would make sense because it's released by Storm Records, and they have albums that I want to say Moynihan's also had a hand in. It's like, imagine 70s Death in June in the 70s. That's what this sounds like. It's a little bit more melodic, a little bit more like hippy dippy, but like just that like really like bleak, melancholic, like hippy dippy shit that was coming out in like the late 60s, where they started doing really bad acid instead of the good shit, and hallucinating very scary things instead of very happy things.
Right.
That's what you kind of get with this, but it's really good. They have some full lengths that are also pretty good. They follow in this direction, but I don't really like the modernization, like the modern sound of this project. They just kind of like decided to like go from this like proto whatever sound to really embracing like the 90s. Like their records sound like the 90s basically, which isn't necessarily bad. Just really stuck in that like cold meat sort of time frame, I suppose, of things. But this is really good. It's a really good record. It's got a really good cover art too, in my opinion. I love
Very
that
cool
album. And it's like, it's about the end of the world. That's what these songs are about. Both of them. Fire of Life, it's about the world catching on fire and being extinguished. And Icarus is pretty similar to that in terms of vibes. So if you like neofolk, you might dig this. You probably will dig this. Stuff like Death in June, Six Com, Sol Invictus,
Of the Wand and the Moon.
Or all of the Wand and the Moon. All those kind of projects are like good like reference points for what you get here. But this is distinctly more American. This was an American project, if I'm not mistaken. It sounds like it anyway. So yeah, really good. I recommend it.
All right.
And again, like I said, the credited as the first apocalyptic folk project.
Gotcha. All right. Alan.
All right. I am unmuted this time. Yeah. All right. Promised at least one more British thrash entry. Feels like a good time to bring up the debut album from Virus called Pray for Death. I have it as part of a box set reissue, so we'll have to zoom in here. But yeah, the art style, very reminiscent of others we've seen tonight, with the whole black and white thing going on, and a little bit of early bolt throw-ish there. The deal with the Virus on this one is, yes, they kind of grew more out of the hardcore and punk scene, leaned in more thrashy. But this first album very much develops the post-apocalyptic theme through all the lyrics and stuff. Song titles will make this pretty obvious. You've got Pray for War, To the Death, Malignant Massacre. Let's see, you've got Scarred for Life. Let's see, what else we got here? Neo Warriors, Nuclear Gods, and Cannibal Holocaust. So yeah, pretty much everything you need to make Mad Max Part 4 if you wanted to. It's scattered throughout the lyrics, and it's a pretty fun listen. It's got a sort of loose structure to it. They're not overly tight. You can definitely hear the punk background, and it works really nicely. It's one of the better British thrash albums that I'm familiar with. And unfortunately, they didn't stick with this style. By the time you get to these other two albums that came a couple years later, they had ditched all of this. These albums move much more towards a very standard American thrash sound. You can basically tell they were thinking, hey, somebody's got to be the British Metallica. Why not Virus? Well, because you're kind of boring in Metallica mode, Virus. That's why.
Yeah, I have that Force Recon record. It's not outstanding. I got it in a bargain bin a long time
Yeah,
ago.
But the Monsters theme, come on.
And their choice of cover song also sort of, turned around to bite them. So yeah, those two albums, you're kind of, it's not that they're horrible. They feel like just very generic thrash albums by a band that wants to be Metallica. But this debut, Pray for Death, that's the one to check out. If you find the box set cheap, sure, pick it up. I got it for a good price. I don't mind that the other two aren't that great. If you just want one and find this for a better price, Pray for Death is pretty cool. This is the one I go back to and re-listen to from time to time. It's a fun album. Songs are well written, high energy stuff. Definitely up there in the British thrash ranks. So and definitely going for the whole apocalyptic road warrior kind of vibe. Virus with their debut, Pray for Death. Not the other Virus albums. I can't stress that enough. Those have a completely different vibe.
Ved Zende. Oh, you're talking about those Virus albums. I thought you meant the other band Virus. Never mind.
Oh, sorry. This is the mid 80s UK Virus, not the black metal kind of Virus, which is a band I keep meaning to check out and never really have. I should get around to that one. There's so many to get around to.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, Marty, it is your turn.
All right. Well, if sloppiness and being out of time is apocalyptic, this demo put to album really kind of foots the bill for me. That's Vlad Tepes with War Funeral March. The first track on here in particular, what is it? War Funeral March in the Gray Mist of a Full Moon Night. I grabbed this early in the week thinking I need to revisit this to see if it fits. And I threw it on and it does. There's just a cacophony to some of this stuff. Feels very apocalyptic. There's so much charm to this shit. It's sloppy. It's out of time, but it's just the right messiness I like in noisy, raw black metal. I don't know. It's not a band I return to often. I could have probably grabbed a Mutilation thrown in here too. But, this is the first I heard from the LLN and always was kind of drawn to the cacophony of it. And it does feel a bit apocalyptic when you're listening to it. It takes a song or two to adjust to the sloppiness and realize that it was meant to be that way. And whether it was meant to be that way or not, I think that's just kind of how it turned out. Desperation, the will to want to do it, I think, was the driving force. Maybe not necessarily well practiced, but War Funeral March, apocalyptic black metal from France. I guess they want to be vampiric, but whatever.
There was that angle too. Vampires can be apocalyptic.
Well, I suppose. Yeah.
There's a bad, sort of Z-grade movie. What is the title of it? It's like Radioactive Caveman Vampires from Planet X. It's one of those things that they used to show like on the USA, what was like Fright Night, bad movies with Martin. What was it? Martin, the guy with the crazy annoying voice used to be the Aflac Duck. Aflac, that dude.
Oh God, Gilbert Godfrey.
Yeah, Godfrey. Yeah.
He wasn't he? That's right.
Yeah, he was. He would do the intros to all those bad, really Z-grade movies they would show on USA like on Saturday nights. And there was one that was called Radioactive Caveman Vampire from Planet X.
Yeah, sounds like a really good movie.
It was funny because there was some, I don't remember much about it except obviously you had it was kind of a Planet of the Apes thing where they had crash landed on this planet and there was something, the planet was about to explode, nuclear explosion kind of thing. And to sort of represent that, as the movie progressed, they would use a different colored filter where it was almost like it was supposed to be kind of like the warning signal that like like at first it's like looks kind of normal, but then the color starts changing, indicating the radiation levels are going up. And so by the end of the movie, when it gets like the red filter, then the whole planet blows up and the movie ends or something. It was a really weird gimmick they tried to do. Don't think it really worked that well, but I do remember it. So hey, it at least stuck with me.
Right on. All right, Eric.
My turn again. Okay. Shit. Let's see. How about this guy right here?
Cool cover.
Black Queen, The Destructive Cycle. I don't really know. I think this is. I want to say this is a local project. I could be wrong. This is the current project of Pete J from who's probably best known for having been an ass suck. Really good. First of all, really fucking good cover art there.
That art's awesome. Yeah.
That's Alla Jeff Whitehead did that.
Oh.
He appears on this album. He's on at least one of the tracks. Just cosmic chaos shit here. This band does not sound anything like Ass Suck. It's like death metal mixed with like there's elements of sludge and doom on this album. It's kind of all over the map. It doesn't really make any cohesive sense, but when you listen to it as a whole, it flows really well. And it's basically about the end of the world. Packaged super well. It's just all about cosmic dread, chaos, and destruction. Shit like that. That's not from Jeff Whitehead, but also a really cool piece. Got this really nice like vellum paper in front of the actual insert. If I blind bought this at a record shop that I don't go to very often because it's a bit far north from where I live. Knowing nothing about it other than like the obvious Jeff Whitehead artwork on the cover of it, and then somebody was like, "Oh, that's PJ from Ass Sucks." So I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll give it a shot." But I had no idea what to prepare for, and this is absolutely nothing like Leviathan, nothing like Ass Suck, nothing like, I mean, for another reference, Bombs of Death, an Ass Suck project as well. It's its distinctly own thing. I don't know if they have anything else out other than this, but it's stellar and it's absolutely crushing and killer and well worth the listen.
Right on. Got me at the cover art and the ASIC connection. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Alan.
All right, let's do another older kind of classic one. Not well known, but sort of fits the bill here. It's an album by a band called Carnage. It sometimes is referred to as a self-titled album. It's also sometimes called Massacre. The band's discography is a little weird. I see some different things listed in different places in terms of some places list like an EP. There's a 7-inch, but it's on a different label or something. There's a little oddness. Not a big name band, not a lot of stuff there. But the music is this kind of thrashy, but also very punk-driven combination that we've touched on quite a bit tonight. It starts out right away with a track called Barbarian Queen, and they use this like big echoey shouted voice at the very beginning of it. It says, yo, through the darkened mists of the Middle Ages arises the Barbarian Queen, Queen, Queen. And it goes into like, this really fast rolling beat where they're kind of just shouting. So yeah, at least for some of the songs, it really does channel that kind of post-apocalyptic vibe. The album has a lot of tracks. There are a few bonus tracks on this CD reissue, but it's still a very short album. The original album, if I remember right, runs barely 21, 22 minutes. It makes Rain and Blood's runtime look good by comparison. But it packs a nice little punch. The tracks are reasonably catchy. It's very sort of coarse sounding. You can tell there wasn't a lot of energy or experience going into it. production wise, but it is very listenable. It's not like it sounds like shit in a can or something. It's just a, get in, get something down, and go with it kind of production job. It's one of those albums that should have faded into obscurity, but it's gotten a little bit of a cult following by folks that like those independent 80s US metal or metal related releases. And so, yeah, it's been picked back up from time to time. This is by, who did this reissue? Heavy Metal Museum or Heaven's Metal, something like that. Heaven and Hell Records. Yeah, I knew I was kind of shooting all around it. So yeah, Heaven and Hell put this back out on CD, which is nice because, yeah, the original vinyl is a pain to find. And like I said, there's a couple of other releases associated with the band, but there's always a few question marks in terms of what the deal is with those. If you like some of the other stuff we've talked about tonight, that kind of fuses the punk and thrash vibes and just kind of goes for an all-out sonic assault from the mid-'80s, Carnage will definitely fit the bill. Cool band, one of those random albums I just found out about somehow and latched onto over the years.
Okay. Well, this was early on in the chat as well, but come on, that album cover.
Yeah, there you go.
This, it sounds like an apocalyptic album after the apocalypse when they're trying to rebuild infrastructure and they're just digging instruments and amps out of the rubble. This album always had such a weird guitar tone. It sounds like all the amps are broken. I don't know. It works. I wouldn't imagine this album to sound any different than it does. But yeah, Radiation Sickness, Live, Suffer, Die, After the Holocaust, Nuclear War, Stranded in Hell. They had the subject matter. They had the cover art, Ed Repka. This is an Ed Repka that is a little atypical from most of his covers. You still have the one guy in the front, but yeah, I think this is awesome apocalyptic thrash, and miss this band. I always enjoyed the hell out of them, other than the very last, before the reunion, when basically everybody left. It was just John and some other dudes, but I don't know. Great band. Eric.
Okay, this is a weird one, but I don't know. I wasn't sure if I was gonna stick with showing this one, but I listened to this pretty much in full today, between going to work and coming home from work. Forgive me. It's a CD and it's wrapped in one of those fucking sticky sleeves, which irritates the shit out of me. This is gonna be hard to see, but what we have here is Symphonic Suite Akira. It's the soundtrack to Akira.
Oh.
And I don't know how many of you are familiar with the soundtrack to Akira. When I was in high school,
it's been a long time,
but fucking, kind of a fucking weeb when I was in high school, like Akira, Ghost in the Shell, Wicked City.
I have the Blu-ray, but I'm not
Fist
familiar with the soundtrack.
The soundtrack's amazing. It's got elements of like so much different stuff put into like one thing. So there's like elements of like city pop, but it's also like industrial, and it's also like fucking ambient, and it's also got like elements of like stuff you would hear in a World Hunter in a world music album. The band sounds huge, like huge. Sounds like it's a huge symphony, and I'm pretty sure it's just the composer. I'm not even gonna try and say his name. I can speak some Japanese, but his name is almost impossible. I'm pretty sure it's just him with various plugins and whatnot. And which is amazing considering this came out in Akira's like late 80s. This album is just amazing. It's like an abstract experiment. In what you would hear at the end of the world. From the beginning, and what I love about it is that like it just follows, the soundtrack is tracked to follow the movie. So if you're familiar with the flow of the movie, that's how the soundtrack works. So it starts off very abrasive, very in your face, very just like anarchic and very off the rails. It kind of slows down. It gets more thoughtful. It gets more progressive. It gets more ambient, and it gets more disturbing and fucked up and abstract. And it gets even more abstract, and some like it to where it sounds like somebody's asphyxiating through a good portion of the album, until the end where it just explodes into like a mushroom cloud of cacophonous symphonic music, and it's awesome. It's amazing.
Right on. Alan. Hey, Times of Grace Under Pressure. Thanks so much for the super chat. Appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, that's a cool pick, Eric. I haven't seen Akira. Jeez, it's been over 20 years. Yeah, it may have been the very first anime thing I ever saw back in college. A friend had it, and we sat up till like 4 a.m. watching it. Maybe not the best way to introduce myself to it. I'm not sure.
I'll die on the hill that Akira is the single best full-length anime ever made.
I think a lot of folks would help you defend that hill for sure.
All right.
And I like a lot of it. So.
All right, let's see. Next up, Wade was mentioning, some bands that have kind of risen in more recent, the 21st century to really push that envelope that Gorguts established with Obscura. And there are some that, definitely delivered a similarly harrowing experience. Marty, you talked about Portal earlier. Another one out of Canada is Mitochondrion. This is their debut, Archaeon.
Thanks, Miss A, for the super
Thank
chat.
You, appreciate it. You rule. And Mitochondrion, this one is a little different. It's not just, built as like a death metal album. You get the sense Mitochondrion's drawing in other styles and incorporating parts of them. And to be clear, it's some of these other genres where you get into like power electronics and stuff. It's not material I'm very familiar with, but one of our longtime viewers, Jack Half-a-Prayer, when he reviewed this over on, I think, Rate Your Music, he pointed out that, this band, really delved into some other underground subgenres for inspiration. That is not just death metal kids raised on death metal playing more death metal. It's like, no, they really have spliced in some unusual influences that you don't often hear that makes this kind of even more mind warping. It's very harsh, very abrasive kind of sound. I'll admit, I've never really fully wrapped my brain around this, and I've had it for, a couple of years now. But it is one of those things. It's interesting. I keep coming back to it, kind of. Marty, I think you used the phrase earlier, trying to crack the code on it a little bit, because I know a lot of folks do hold this project in pretty high regard. They've only made about 3 albums to date that I'm aware of, and maybe the others are slightly more accessible. Maybe I'm approaching it from the wrong end of the catalog. I'm not sure. But Mitochondrion, this is bleak, angry, hateful. It's music. It's not just noise. I mean, there's something buried there, but it is a very thick, dense wall to try to penetrate, but an interesting one to try to penetrate at the same time. So I think Mitochondrion might fall into that kind of category of bands that Wade was mentioning in the chat, for groups that, probably, heard Obscura and thought to themselves, how can we fuck that with that even more than it already is? Mitochondrion is finding a pretty good way to pull that off, it seems. So cool, very, very dark project out of where else? Canada.
All right. Well, this is one I showed when we had Dan on. The U.S. black metal book, and I think it holds true for being pretty apocalyptic sounding, and that would be Rise of the Imperial Hordes by Krieg.
Oh, yeah.
This is recorded very strangely. They recorded all the vocals and the music first, and then they found a guy to come in and put drums on it later. So there's a sloppiness to some of this stuff. Thankfully, the riffs are good enough to keep you interested, and the drums not always being perfectly in sync with the the guitars, it just adds a feeling of apocalyptic urgency. Things are in decay, falling apart. And Neil, or Imperial's voice, his vocal style is just sick, all over the place. He can do death growls, crazy howling style. There's just some really good catchy riffs on this record. I always liked it. After this, Krieg kind of went a little bit more war metal for a minute or two, and then into, they ended up adopting the band, Chris Grigg from the band Woe, and they kind of got it together. And there was also a moment where Andrew Harris was involved in this as well, in the Black Lodge era. But this is early in manic, frantic, apocalyptic U.S. black metal, when the world hated U.S. black metal, especially the Europeans and the Scandinavians. But actually, they forged their own way, and some good shit came out of it.
Yeah, Neil always kind of did some very different things with Krieg over the years. So and that can be frustrating when you're trying to get a handle on him. But yeah, it's also interesting because you never quite knew what you were going to hear from one album to the next.
All right, Eric.
Okay. So Marty showed Godflesh earlier. This next band I saw open for Godflesh the last time I saw Godflesh live. That would be Prison Religion. Specifically, Prison Religion with Cage with Mirrored Bars, featuring Crime Wave Prophet, Crime Wave, that's his name, and Prophet Poozy, produced by Poozy. It's a noise rap record. That's like the most probably derogative way to refer to this record. But this is hip hop chaos. Like, this shit is the sound of like your speakers collapsing in on themselves and absolute rage being spit through a microphone. Is some of the most misanthropic music you're gonna hear. Should you choose to investigate this album, if you don't like hip hop, this is probably not going to change your view. But this is not like Wu-Tang, as much as I love Wu-Tang. This is more akin to like an industrial album that sounds like it's going out of control, with a couple of DJs airing their most vile grievances over the mic. It's so fucking good. And you get song titles, Wet Me Up, I'm pretty sure it's about getting shot. Shots Fired is also probably about getting shot. Criminal Religion, On Sight, probably about getting shot. Born to Die, I'm imagining, is about getting shot. Everything on this album is about death, dying, or instilling death in somebody else, and it's fucking amazing.
All right. See, everybody, this is why I love High Defamation TV. He always pulls cool shit and learn a lot. Go subscribe to his channel and watch his shit. He pulls cool stuff. Alan.
Yeah, you're always going to see stuff you're not familiar with. That's going to interest you.
Aw. Shucks.
All right, let's see. Let's go in a slightly different direction here. There's a few different black metal albums in terms of just like, really raw blasting black metal that I thought kind of fit the bill. One I'll go with for this is Funeral Mist's debut, Salvation, from 2003, if I remember correctly. Funeral Mist was one of those bands that was on the leading edge, helped define the whole orthodox black metal movement. Typically, these days, everybody hears that and they just think Deathspell Omega, which of course was part of it and one of the better known bands to come from it. Funeral Mist was a big part of that too. And if you read interviews with a lot of folks from this generation of black metal, not the musicians from the 90s, but the guys who were starting bands in the aughts or the very early 2010s, folks like on the Icelandic black metal scene, for example, this is one of the albums they all rave about as just being pure hellfire intensity that really kind of set the bar for what they wanted to do moving forward. It's a very brutal, relentless. It does not let up much at all. To me, yeah, it's got Swedish bands could really lean into that when they wanted to. Not all of them do, of course, but some Swedish black metal bands could really just lay the hammer down and just pummel nonstop, start to finish, in a black metal album. Funeral Mist Salvation is one of those types of albums. There's nothing pretty about it. There's nothing that's like, oh, there's acoustic interludes and interesting, melodies or counterpoints. They're like, no, this is just meant to sear your face off from start to finish. So in that sense, yeah, it's got an apocalyptic vibe to it. Not in the lyrics or anything. This again is going for the whole Orthodox Satanism sort of resurgence in black metal at the time. But definitely the delivery. It's caustic enough and unrelenting enough that I feel it's got an apocalyptic tone to it. So yeah, Funeral Mist Salvation. One of the early tent poles that doesn't seem to get mentioned as much these days. I don't know. Maybe the band did something weird later on I'm unaware of. But at least early on, it did have a big impact on the bands that would follow in their wake.
All right. My next two polls are going to be drum machine driven black metal, just because. In the Streams of Inferno by Mysticum. This is one of those bands that I think was always overlooked just because they sounded Norwegian. The style of black metal they played had the Norwegian vibe, but they didn't hide the fact, again, the drum machine was very much an important part of their sound, and the way they worked in, two of the guys were construction workers, and they would take recorders to the job site and record the machines making the noises, and they're day laborers, I think he said they were. I don't know, Malmberg. I talked to him on the phone for Worm Gear, and they record on the job site, like the excavators and the machine pounding and stuff, and then they would work it in to the albums and stuff, which I think is really cool. This album is very much black metal. The vocals are very acidic. Whereas most Norwegian black metal has more of a folk pagan vibe to it, woodsy feel. This is cold, kind of apocalyptic, churning, not even warlike. It just feels like just apocalyptic, I think, in a lot of ways. The album that finally came out, Planet Satan, years later, had more of a EDM, not sort of. It was very much EDM with some black metal mixed in, but always really liked this album. And this band, they had just a kind of a cold void sound about them. And boys did a lot of psychedelics, and it shows. Good stuff. Eric.
Oh, these guys came up earlier in the chat. I had this pulled. Impale Nazarene, Latex Cult. Which is probably my favorite Impale Nazarene full-length.
Little Motorhead in that.
I mean, this is their Motorhead record.
Yep.
But dude, it's so insane. Like all that early Impale Nazarene shit is insane. But this record specifically, for me, is just off the rails. Absolutely. I mean, what do you get? You get nuclear metal, and I mean, that's fucking what it is. This is the soundtrack to World War III. Like, if I were in a tank squad in World War III, this is what I would want being blasted out of the loudspeakers as we like trampled through the desert wastelands, firing that gun to whatever, this is what I'd want blasting. It's just punishing, feral intensity, but catchy as fuck and fun. And it's like I'd be in the apocalypse, but with a smile on my face. I love a lot of most of that early Impale Nazarene shit, but this is as far as their full lengths go, this is probably my favorite. It's a tie with this and like Tolkien Nors, but shit's so good. And look at that cover art. I mean that's what this sounds like. Honestly, just like this cyber dreck of bastardization of black metal and Motorhead.
Yep.
It's so good.
All right. Ellen.
All right. I think this one's a reasonable follow-up to your Mysticum pick, Marty. This is the kind of thing, if you described it to me, I'd be like, I'm not sure that's for me, but they released an album last year that Ben reviewed for the channel, and the clips players like, that's actually pretty fucking cool sounding. So I looked into them and picked up their original album from '95. It's a German band called Naked Whipper.
Dude, that shit is so good.
It's so good. It really is. Yeah. And it's quite simply put, it's blackened grindcore. So that alone already makes it apocalyptic in my mind. I can run with that. It's exactly what you think. Yeah, it's, grindcore attitude mentality, but, with a black metal sound drenched all over it. And it works. It's the kind of thing I wouldn't have, if you had described it to me, I would not have been interested. But again, Ben gave it a really positive review. Marty picked clips to include. I'm just like, I got to check out more of that. That's just too cool. And yeah, so now Pain Streaks, the one I'm showing, came out in '95. And the band may have had some other releases here and there, but they were, I guess, basically dormant most of the time. Then they popped back up last year with a new album called Chapel Defilement. They kind of picked up where this one left off, as far as I can tell, and does the same thing and still does it very, very well. So yes, Black and Grindcore just by default gets included in the apocalyptic category in my book. And it's a really fun listen. I got to be in the right mood for it, but when that mood hits, I get naked. And
I mean, it's got that undeniable Moyen artwork that just like exudes.
Yep. You're exactly right. Yeah,
the
Chris Moyen thing always, you already kind of know partially what you're getting, but yeah, this one isn't just a war metal or an underground cult, black thrash or death thrash kind of thing. This is, black and grindcore is the only way to describe Naked Whipper.
All right. Never seen anybody show this on YouTube before, and probably for good reason, but I picked On the Demiurge by Octonomos. Again, drum machine driven black metal, and I think it's a one-man project, and it is the guy, what's his name? Hold on, uno momento. Fredrik Soderlund. Oh, there's also another guy on here too, a guy that was in Algeon. They're a Swedish band. Fredrik Soderlund was also known from the band Puissance, which was, I think, a cold meat band. Martial industrial type of thing. Maybe a little sketchy. I don't know. Hard to say. But this is definitely really... Sketchy. What's that? What's that? Were they definitely sketchy? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I had a promo for Let Us Lead and liked it. Didn't investigate any of that shit. But yeah, this is manic, drum machine driven black metal along the lines of Mysticum, but more of the Swedish black metal sound. So there's less dissonant melody in it, just more tremolo note-based riffs. But it's frantic. The vocals are really, really nasty. Pulled it out, but I thought this was kind of apocalyptic, and yeah, it is. It's fierce, well produced. God, this is Full Moon Productions, so this is pretty old stuff. Kind of early, late. I pulled it up. I could tell you when this came out. This came out in '95, so it's right in the era of when black metal was kind of exploding. So good stuff. I dig it. Eric.
Okay, I'm running low, but I can always grab more. I pulled The Body Collected Works 2005 through 2003 through 2015. This is a double cassette compilation. It's not everything The Body released during that time. It's like mostly like singles and B-sides and split type shit. I don't know if anybody in here is familiar with The Body. A lot of people like to compare him to shit like Thou, which is not.
They did splits with
really
Thou,
that
didn't they?
accurate. Yeah, they did, but they don't sound like Thou at all. Just like despondent. And the thing that's cool about the Body is that like they kind of are one of those bands that morphs, but they're not trying to like keep up with trends. They're just like, we don't want to do the same thing every album. We want to do something completely different. So like one album's going to be like this dismally bleak, almost funeral doomish type album, and then the next album's going to be shoegaze, and then the album after that's going to be like industrial sludge, a la Author and Punisher. So like I really appreciate that when a band just strives to keep themselves from getting pigeonholed, from getting like typecast, as it were.
Yeah.
And the one thing though that permeates everything that they do, regardless of what sound they're going for, is that it's all just the bleakest outlook. Like this is music to it's music to unalive yourself to. Take that for what you will. Only they're like kind of trying to will that on the entire planet. Having seen them live, they're a crushing live act, and they really get into just like instilling that vibe of nihilism and pure world hatred on just about everything. But they're also like the nicest dudes, and like that. Honestly, it comes out because as dismal as they get, there's like still a lot of heart to this, and as apocalyptic as it gets, there's still a lot of soul and a lot of emotion to what they put out, regardless of like song titles like Dead Cops or Cop Killer, or Black Boys on Mopeds. But then you've got song titles like Even the Saints Knew Their Hour of Failure and Loss, Saren, How the Gods Kill, Kills You Slowly, Failure, Love or Indifference. It's just fucking, it's killer. It's really good. I can't tell you if you're gonna like every the Body record, but chances are if you're into extreme music of some sort, there's at least going to be one record by the Body that might click for you, because they're that different from each album to album. So really good.
Right on. Okay.
And not a CD, it's 2 cassettes. I didn't open them up, but there you go.
Nice. All right, Ellen.
All right, well, let's do a album that is sort of a concept album about Armageddon, what happens before and after, and that would be Mayhem's Grand Declaration of War. We've talked about this one several times, usually just in the context of, it was Mayhem moving the ball forward, sort of the comeback album with the new lineup. But it does focus on Armageddon, and I think that's maybe something that gets lost. I'm not going to claim I follow every detail of what they try to incorporate through the songs, but the basic gist of it is the first half of the album is sort of leading up to that final climactic moment, and then in the middle of the album you essentially have Armageddon, Ragnarok, whatever you want to phrase it. Everything is destroyed, and then the second half of the album is what comes after. And it's where that kind of weird electronic piece comes in, the song that made so many people kind of lose their minds and freak out and claim Mayhem.
I was one of those people initially, but I ended up loving the album. That's one of my main picks whenever I listen to Mayhem anymore.
Yeah, I love it. It's another one that, yes, controversial when it came out. It took me 2 listens and I was absolutely sold on the album. I was an early convert and felt like, nope, this is actually quite brilliant. But that's what the whole point of part of that, very cold and minimal electronic thing is. It wasn't just like, ooh, we're going to make some kind of techno song. It's like, this is a universe starting over after it was just annihilated. It was supposed to be part of the concept, the story that was playing out through the music. So, of course, it was supposed to sound different and kind of start small and start to build up big again. But that, I think, kind of went over a lot of folks' heads. And again, it's not like it's spelled out easily where you can follow it and just like, oh, right here on page 3, it says what's happening. But so if we're talking about Armageddon kind of metal. Here's an album that is literally built around the concept and built incredibly well, as Marty said. Yeah, it's one that I go back to. A lot of folks have said the remaster that they did several years ago, it has different cover artwork, is actually quite good, and some folks prefer it. I haven't gotten to hear that yet, but I'm curious to check it out sometime, just because I like the album a lot. And it'd be interesting to compare what they did. That, because usually with that kind of thing, people either say, I can't tell the difference, or the new one sucks, I like the original better. Enough people have mentioned that the new updated version actually sounds superior that I want to give it a listen when I just have to stumble across it at the right time for the right price, and I will do so. But yeah, Grand Declaration of War, that's where we're at tonight.
All right. Well, this might be one that I don't get a lot of people agreeing with me on, but In the Eyes of God, today's the day. This thing is got an apocalyptic feel through a lot of it. It was Steve Austin's fist to the face of his detractors, I guess you could say. But he brought in Bill Kellier and Brown Daler, who were from the band Lethargy. They were kind of a math death metal thing and super complicated and bizarre. And they went on after this to start Mastodon. Braun's drumming on this is absolutely crazy. It's great. Seeing him play it live numerous times during the tour, through the touring cycle, absolutely amazing. And how he just sits there so cool as a cucumber doing all this crazy shit. It's impressive. Absolutely impressive. But yeah, absolutely, Temple of the Morning Star, I think, was kind of an indication that things are going to get more extreme. I think still to this day, Willpower is my favorite Today's the Day album. I love that record. This one is a close second. It's just so much more intense. It's almost like Steve was mainlining, some metal and grind. Not that this ever goes into grindcore territory, but it's intense like a grindcore record at times. And of course, Steve's vocals are just absolute. Again, I use the word acidic. He's screaming from the bottom of his toes. And just the way the rhythm section works so well together and really brings the ferocity of Steve's vision to the light, and the riffs are just twisted, noisy. I mean, this is, Today's the Day started off as an amphetamine reptile band, and that, is well known for noise rock. And Today's the Day in a lot of is kind of a noise rock band. He got more metal as he went, I guess. But I think it's a cool combination between noise rock and metal on this record. And the way it's put together is very apocalyptic in attack and execution. So love it or hate it, I think it rules. I think it's a great record. Eric.
Okay, I don't have a lot to say about this one, but I felt like I should pull it because it's appropriate. This is probably, I don't know, it's one of my favorite death metal singles of all time, and this is what I kind of imagined Ragnarok would sound like, and that would be Dominus with their self-titled EP. Were they Dutch or were they from Holland? I don't. Ignorant American over here.
I can look.
Dominus put out an album after this, View to the Dim, legendary death metal record.
Denmark.
Made available on CD. Denmark. Would go on to become the band Volbeat, which is just wild.
Oh no.
But this album is just world ending. It's so crushing. And just heavy as balls. So good.
Yeah.
Like I said, probably my favorite death metal single of all time. It's funny. It says Denmark right here on it, and I just totally looked past it. 1993, so it's kind of late-ish. View to the Dim, I think, was like the next year or maybe the year after that, which needs a reissue so bad. Somebody out there put out View to the Dim, but they probably will never happen because of Volbeat, and they don't want to be associated with Dominus. fucking killer.
Yeah.
Imagine an ocean with Viking ships as far as the eye can see, just shooting flaming arrows at everything living, and that's kind of what I feel like when this album plays.
Awesome. All right. Ellen.
All right. Well, if we're going to have a nuclear winter, you can't have it without these two guys involved. Gotta have some immortal there. And yeah, for me, Blizzard Beast is immortal at their most chaotic sounding.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
The production is very harsh. The riffing is very blunt. These songs are blunt force trauma. For a long time, it was my least favorite Immortal album. It seemed to be just a little too over the top for me. Over the years, I've learned to like it, not love it, but I can get along with the album. We've made peace with one another. But yeah, Battles in the North kind of started this. These two albums are kind of similar. Before this, of course, you had kind of the classic early second wave sound on their debut. Then they sped that up a lot on Pure Holocaust. But yeah, with Battles in the North, they went for, these kind of shorter, blunter, kind of riff attacks. But on this album, they're just like, well, let's do what we did on Battles in the North, but make it sound even messier. And they succeeded. So yeah, this really does feel like you're just getting pummeled in a total whiteout of a snowstorm. You can't see what's hitting you. You just kind of wish it would stop. That's Blizzard Beasts for you. After this, they change again completely. They clean up their sound. They are still very riff based, but you got this bigger epic sweep to the tracks on At the Heart of Winter. So it was kind of a 2-album experiment. Some people love this phase of the band, some people don't. And like I said, I've come around on this one in particular in recent years. Blizzard Beasts, very, very, very fitting for a post-nuclear winter fallout version of Armageddon.
That used sticker on the front of it.
Yep.
Makes me want to start a punk band called Pre-Loved.
The local store always puts Pre-Loved on their used stickers. And going through this deck tonight, I've bought a lot of my apocalyptic heavy music from that particular store, it seems. It's been a lot of little yellow stickers on things tonight.
Right on. All right, I am up next. Okay, this is where I started to lose a little bit touch with Abigor. Channeling the quintessence of Satan. Listening to it now this week, I'm like, what was I thinking? It seems kind of a little more, it's still very apocalyptic sounding, but this is where the riffs are starting to get a bit crazier. And as they went on, they got really strange and out there and obtuse. But this album here, I remember getting it and thinking, wow, this kind of loses the atmosphere a little bit in favor of more aggression, more chaotic riff stylings. But listening to it today, it was a little bit more tame than of course. There's been so much more music that has happened between now and this record that has gotten a lot more chaotic that I do like. But yeah, I need to revisit this a little bit more seriously. But this is definitely. Oh, did I say the name? I did.
Yes.
Very solid. A little bit frantic, very complex Abigor record, apocalyptic, and yeah, check it out.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks agree with you though, Marty. It is the point where a lot of folks were jumping off the Abigor wagon, and even the band. Not too long after that, they went on hiatus for a few years.
Yep.
So there is something that was getting lost in translation there. I think that's also the last album in their catalog that hasn't been reissued. So copies of that are stupid expensive right now. I think everything else has gotten reissued in the past few years, but Channeling is one. I don't know if there's a licensing issue that's holding that one up or if they're just waiting and doing it last for whatever reason.
It's on Napalm, so is their other shit. So it seems like it's weird. Yeah,
it seems like it should move forward. I don't know. Maybe the band doesn't want that one put back out because there's like 2 albums there, Channeling and the one I guess right before it or right after it, that folks tend to kind of consider like, yeah, there's a little bit of a dip in quality there. But yeah, like you said, it's very pummeling in delivery, more so than atmospheric.
All right. Eric is back.
Yeah. Oh, do we want to make this last round, guys? Because we are coming right up on midnight.
Yeah, I've got like maybe one left after this, but I don't need to show.
Okay. Yeah, let's do last call then.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Here we go. Gotta avoid that glare. Massacre Sacro. Out of Colombia, Medellin specifically, I believe. Ultra metal. To summarize, come around with the likes of all those Colombian bands, whose names all escape me right now for whatever reason. God, early onset dementia, people, it's a real thing. Anyway, this is it's death metal, it's war metal. It's not too unlike what Sarcophago were doing around the same time. It's killer. It's super violent. It's all just, war focused death metal. It's rad.
That J card is about as long as a toddler.
Dude, look at that shit. It's like the size of my arm. It's just not as buff. Like,
yep.
Wow. Too many panels. Every time I had a J card that long in the old days, they'd rip.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, super savage, super violent. Their first album was released by like Osmos. I don't remember what the name of it was, but it has a very distinct black and white cover that many other bands have used for some sort of art. That one is a lot rougher. It's a little bit slower. It's a little bit less refined. I don't want to call this refined because it's savage, but it's definitely a bit more directed, a bit more blunt and crucial sounding. Parabellum, that's what I was trying to think of. Thank you. See, shit's escaping my brain, just like...
It does, me all the time. It's getting worse.
It's like a sieve. It's like, I have a Parabellum shirt. I wore it yesterday. I know this for sure. Anyway.
All right.
Massacre. Killer. In terms of like, it's war metal, but without the repetition, without the extreme Bathory worship. It's more in that vein of like the primitive early Brazilian shit. So if you're comfortable with like the first EP in full length by Sepultura, or the early Holocausto shit, or Chakal, or fucking Mutilated Force, the Mist, that kind of stuff. That's kind of what you get with that Sakura record.
All right, cool stuff. Ellen.
All right, so I'll blow through just a few things here real quick. It's not necessarily an apocalyptic album, but you do have, of course, the whole, and who shall be able to stand quote from Satyricon Nemesis Divina.
I love that fucking record. That is their last truly great moment. I love that album.
And they obviously have reference, from Revelations there. We could have mentioned Panzer Division Marduk. It's just another one of those black metal beatdowns. Again, we talk about that one from time to time, so I went with Funeral Mist instead. We could talk about a little war metal like Titan Blood and Blasphemy, kind of staples if you're going in that direction. But the album I'll actually end on, and it actually piggybacks off of Marty's last pick, something from the other end of the Abagora catalog. I picked the Hollenswag album, which is subtitled Chronicles of Perdition. This one came out around 2018, so much later than Channeling the Quintessence of Satan. The weird thing with this album is it goes back to that much harsher sound of around channeling. Leading up to this, as you said, Marty, Abagore's sound changes when you get into the 21st century. They had a hiatus for a few years. In interviews with the band, they mentioned that around the time that whole orthodox black metal stuff was kicking up, they were still paying attention to the scene. They heard that stuff and like, well, hell, we can do that, but we can do it better. And so they came back, with two really complex but well-done albums. and kept going from there. But yeah, they were in a little different style than they had been previously. And then this album came out, and it's just, a much, much harsher sound than anything they had done going back into the late 90s era. This was a band that, would keep you on your toes. They didn't tend to repeat themselves too much. So they often did really quality black metal stuff, pretty harsh, pretty extreme personalities. They're very much into deeply into the whole theological satanic thing and all that. But this album in particular, from the later part of their catalog, stands out as having a really hellish sound to it. It's an album that doesn't get mentioned much when folks.
I've never even seen the cover. Which one is that?
It's called Holland's Wang Chronicles of Perdition. I think it's.
I've never even heard of that or seen that cover. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you say Holland's Wang?
I did say yes. That's probably one of those German things where it should be a V pronunciation. My bad. Holland's Wang. Chronicles of Perdition.
Holland's Wang better. That's definitely more catchy.
It is more
more memorable. Yeah,
for sure. But no more. And kind of like you, this was one I had never seen or heard of. At some point, I was looking just through stuff as I was like, what album is that from Abigor? I've never heard of that, never seen it. So I was like, well, it showed up cheap somewhere. I'm like, okay, sure, I'll give it a try. It's from the years they were on Avant-Garde, if that helps narrow it down some. It's got a very sort of hell theme to it. It goes back to the satanic themes. All hail darkness and evil, our Lord's arrival, Black Death Satanus, cold breath of Satan, hunger of the flaming void, Christ's descent into hell, ancient fog of evil. It's going back to that kind of more sort of Abigor's, more just straightforward satanic roots for this one album. After this, they change gears again. The album before this, Leitmotif Lucifer, doesn't sound like this either. So it's this one very raw moment in the later part of the Abigor discography. And that's what I'll end with. So, Marty, what have you got for our grand finale?
Just two more. I had to pick a Nile record. This the latest one, The Underworld. Okay. Even though this is more, Egyptian themed, the big swirling, a bit of destruction on the cover. The way that Nile composes the music, it does feel very apocalyptic. It feels very like you're being sucked into this vortex. It's, George Callias's drumming is a big weapon leading the charge into this apocalypse. He's perfect. He is just absolutely, his speed is completely clinically fast and so tasteful in the way he plays drums. But the riff style, the vocals, it feels like you're being pulled into an apocalypse. Can't think of anything else. And this is a stretch. But since Eric was on tonight, I just wanted to throw this up here because I think this is some of the coolest shit Stephen O'Malley ever did. And it was with Burning Witch. This is A Crippled Lucifer. This is, if you were to take Sleep, Sun, and give it more riffs, the apocalyptic feeling here is just very crushingly heavy. But the singer, Edgy 59, he is absolutely, he kind of sounds like Blaine from The Accused a little bit, but put in this context, this kind of slower pummeling. It's sludgy in a lot of ways, but there's just more of an atmosphere to it. There's a dark atmosphere. It feels like maybe after an apocalypse type of thing. What were you going to say, Eric?
I almost pulled Crippled Lucifer.
Yeah.
Which, Burning Witch, and then Towers as well.
Yeah. This is...
that's not a stretch, I don't think, anyway. Have you heard the dude Edgy 59 or whatever? He was like in a project called Poison Glass, which is pretty fucked up, weird music that sounds like the end of the world.
Huh? Does he still have his voice on it?
Oh yeah, for sure.
His voice is absolutely sick. It's so good.
I think I think he also did some stuff with the Master Musicians of Bukkake, which is a project that more people should talk about, in my opinion.
Huh.
Sounds like in that case, maybe it's
Probably
Edgy
the,
69.
probably the best name in music, honestly.
Right? Yep. Isn't there also a band called Drive By Bukkake, which is kind of funny?
I don't know.
Yep.
I've
seen the name. I don't know a thing about them.
I'm not very aware of Bukkake, Marty. I don't know.
Well, you know.
It's a pretty hit or miss genre.
Well, if it's a miss, it isn't necessarily Bukkake, is it? Anyway. Yeah.
Zing.
Zing, zing. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got. And
There we go.
Eric, it was great to see you back.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So fun to have you on, man. Been too long.
Yeah, this was a good time.
Do you have anything coming up that you want to tell the people about that they should be made aware of?
I got a couple I got one that I've been meaning to put up this week, but just because of life stuff, I had to kind of put it off for a little bit. But it's going to be kind of running through some modern Pacific Northwest, more specifically Seattle-based black metal, kind of around the Weir Guild collective and Verminosis Records, but a little bit outside of that in a couple cases. It should be a fun one. It's gonna be mostly tapes, because good luck finding vinyl on Weir Guild if you don't get it the immediate instance it's released. So that's gonna be coming up, and then many years ago, many years, so many moons, I did a video showcasing albums with artwork by the artist Sugi out of Japan.
Oh, yeah.
And there will be a part 2 to that coming up, probably after the Seattle black metal video.
Well, as I'm unfamiliar with the black metal collective and bands that you speak of, I am very much looking forward to that episode. Very cool.
Yeah, it should be a good one.
And like I said, folks, the link is in the description. Please go subscribe to Eric's channel. And a lot of cool shit on there for sure. You've seen tonight, he's got very eclectic tastes, and that is exciting to watch on the YouTube, because a lot of us all kind of listen to the same stuff sometimes. But Alan, how about you? What's going on with you? Let's talk metal. I know you've just come out of a marathon filming of a bunch of different episodes.
Yes, and been a lot of discussion this past Tuesday. I posted a discussion about U.S. power metal, just why that phrase tends to confuse people and cause issues. So been a lot of good thoughts and discussion in the comments on that. So if folks are interested, you can go check that out. This coming Tuesday, it looks like I have uploaded a discussion of science fiction in heavy metal with a few examples. And that just might, lean a little bit into something we'll be doing next Friday.
There we go.
Don't know how much we want to say.
No, we can say it next Friday. Yeah, John Cobbett from Hammers of Misfortune and Lord Weird Sluffag and Ludicra.
And Ludicra.
Vol, yeah. Bunch of stuff. He'll be on the show first time. And also Charlie Anderson will be joining us as well from Weft and Panopticon and other things as well. Yes, John has got a new musical project he has wanted to talk about, and Charlie has contributed to it as well. So having both of those guys on, we're going to talk about that stuff and then slide into favorite bands that defy convention.
Yep. Those albums that really push the boundaries.
Yep.
Don't stick. It seems like, yes, a very appropriate kind of topic for an episode where we get to talk with John Cobbett, which should be, a really great time. Looking forward to it.
Hell yeah. All right, everybody, you all rule. Cheers. Thanks for joining us. One more thing. Tomorrow on the Heavy Metallurgy Discord server at 5 o'clock Eastern, Mr. Raccoon, I think he's in the Netherlands. He is doing a radio show on the server regarding the band X Japan. It isn't going to be like he's just going to pull a bunch of favorite songs, try to get introduce people to the band. One of Japan's most popular heavy metal bands. So
there's a documentary, and it's wild.
Is it?
About X Japan. Yeah, it's crazy.
I know. The guy from Smashing Billy Corgan just interviewed him. One of the guys from X Japan on his Magnificent Others podcast. I like that channel. Although he's been picking some Paul Anka, who gives a shit?
Yeah, I don't know. Musically, X Japan's not really my bag, but like very interesting story as far as that band is concerned. It's crazy.
So that's very cool that Mr. Raccoon's going to be doing that. And my kid has spent a week picking a playlist for me to play on there, and I might do it Sunday. It'll probably be next Saturday though, but we'll see. If you're not familiar, go to the Discord link and join the server. A lot of cool stuff going on over there all week long. But again, Eric, thank you. Alan, as always. Oh, one more thing. Wednesday, Album Club, Transcendence to the Peripheral, Disembowelment. That'll be...
Shit, you could have talked about that tonight, Marty.
Yeah, we could have talked about this tonight, but I didn't want to spoil it for Wednesday, shoot my load tonight and not have anything to say about it on Wednesday. And Lee from Warhammer 666 will be joining us, filling in for Jim on that. So.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Is he still going to do a pregame video, even though
I don't know how he's going to swing that. Yeah, I don't know how he's going to swing that, but
might be some spoilers there if he's not careful.
Maybe.
Dun, dun, dun.
All right, everybody. You all rule. Thanks so much. Eric, hang out for a sec, and we will see you all next week. A lot of stuff going on. Heavy Metallurgy. Thanks for sticking with us. We appreciate all of you. Thanks.
Peace out, people.